中あって即自由になれる Oh yeah 僕だって伝え合って
Together again! Hello and welcome to the Nen Show Podcast. I am your host, Craftsdwarf. This is my co-host, Mathwiz. We're here.
Yeah, not even a hard drive failure can stop me. It can delay me, but it can't stop me.
Oh god, I couldn't imagine. I've always thought, because California has been on fire lately, as usual. And since the big one that was closer to where I live earlier this year, I've always been of the mindset, if I have to evacuate, I can grab my 2 hard drives and take them with me. Even if I lose my computer, as long as I have the hard drives, I'm good. But then in the case of a hard drive failure, I'm fucked because that's where all the stuff is. So
yeah.
I mean, luckily, yeah. Well, my scripts are all backed up on Dropbox, so so as long as I can log into my Dropbox, I can get to those and stuff, and a lot of my other documents, but that's all smaller stuff. So. Hello, this episode of the Nen Show Podcast, we're talking about data storage and YouTuber problems. Alright, let's get into the comments. You don't have any, right? Because you forgot, which is fine. Oh yeah, and I guess there's also
Yeah, because I remember I did actually, in my, in the time that I wasn't able to, I did look over the comments. I do have, I guess, one I could respond to, although I guess it's kind of a non-response because I didn't think of it ahead of time. What's my favorite antagonist thus far in One Piece? Good question. Craftsdwarf, what's your favorite antagonist thus far?
Thus far, honestly, I mean, part of it is from stuff that happens later, but I really like Moria now. Just rereading Thriller Bark and thinking about some of the later stuff is because I mean we even see him in the stretch of chapters, so you could expect that it's not like a spoiler to say we see more of Moria, but I don't know, I just really he's really great, and honestly Lucci's good, Eneru is also really good, Buggy, Crocodile, some of the other minor ones are they're fine, but Moria might be my favorite of these ones so far. And of course I have a lot of hopes for Blackbeard. I wouldn't say he's my favorite so far because he's not gotten a lot of focus, but I've said before that he's the character I want to see more of most, out of everyone. So yeah, that he's definitely he has potential to be really great, but I want to see way more of him. So what about you? Do you have one or?
I don't know, the one that's coming to my mind, the one at the front of my mind is, I don't know, maybe Crocodile, but I don't know.
Crocodile's good, yeah. And I will mention, because I forgot to, but, yes, we are a week late, because Mathwiz hard drive failed, so she couldn't get to the reading, and then, even though it was a shorter reading, but we will have, this episode is this week, next week we will have the next episode, and then the week after that we will have the last episode in this saga. So, basically it's going to be 3 weeks, 3 episodes, because especially this one and the next one are going to be shorter, because they're smaller stretches of chapters, so, just letting you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, the comments I have to respond to, a few people mentioned, because apparently Thriller Bark, it's not, I guess the issue is Oda spelled it incorrectly. He spelled it as if it rhymes with park, but really it's supposed to be BARQUEUE, because it's a type of ship, and I'm like, oh, so it's basically Thriller Ship. That's what that's what Moria's ship is, Thriller. So so in other words, by giving the name, it kind of foreshadows the reveal that it's actually a boat that they're on. But he spelled it kind of, I guess, maybe it's in Japanese, they're pronounced the same, so they would have gotten the same, katakana, so he just, park is spelled like this, so bark must be spelled like this, because they sound the same, which isn't true, I don't know, or maybe it was on purpose to, I don't know, but, so yeah, I didn't know, I never knew that, because, again, I was reading those chapters weekly, so Thriller Bark was actually the first arc that I read, through its entirety going weekly, so that was kind of fun, but, because another thing I remember from that era was Perona, because people were arguing about how her name should be Romanized, because some people were saying it should be Verona or Verona, because I guess P, V, and B can be similar in Japanese, So of course, so P and B, Park and Bark. So I've always had that in my mind that, you know, maybe it should be Thriller Park instead, for the same reason that people were arguing over Perona and Barona, because it's the P and the B's. I don't know. So yeah, it's understandable why I've had that mistake in my head for like what, a decade now, like over a decade. How old are these chapters? So, but yeah.
It's just hard for me to process that, like, this was the arc that you started reading weekly, and, like, obviously I have the context now that there's so much more material to come after this, and just like, ah!
Yeah, that's how long I've been reading weekly, like, because we hit where I started back in the last part of Ennia's Lobby, so yeah, it's just like, so, well, this stretch of chapters that we're covering, and especially, is one of the areas where there's just, like, so much crazy shit happening that, like, ooh, but we'll get to that. So yeah, a couple more comments. Karabe, he pointed out that Ryuma acts a bit different than other zombies, and I think, Captain Marvelous replied to him and pointed out that, like, Ryuma was the only zombie who, like, interacted with his own, like, the owner of his shadow, with the exception of Oars and Luffy, but, you know, Oars is kind of a dumbass, so I guess that makes sense, but it is kind of, I don't know, I've kind of forgot about that, so just a little detail I thought was interesting. Mr. Magananios, I might have mispronounced that bit. He linked a really long, I didn't read the whole thing, I kind of skimmed parts of it, basically a long analysis on the arc of Thriller Bark. It does reference, like, some stuff later, so there's spoilers in it, minor, like, references.
Does. I can't read any One Piece analysis. Right.
Yeah, because, well, it was annoying, too, because he only did it to throw, like, future antagonists of One Piece under the bus, and also Naruto randomly, and I'm just like, oh, okay, thanks, like, because I'm just not a fan of that. But other than that, there was still some good observations there for the people who can read it. Sorry, Mathwiz, you are forever cut off of One Piece content for the next, like, several months. Man, it's kind of, it's gotta be a little annoying, yeah.
That face when you can't, like, read or participate in many One Piece discussions because you're not caught up on 900 chapters. So here I am, like, 500 chapters in, and I still can't access some of this stuff because I haven't read enough.
So yeah, and then last one. This was actually from Senor Pink on my server, but it was reposted in the comment section of the video by Javier Torres. Just sort of like he talked about Zorro's character arc thus far, because at the start of the series he was like, hey Luffy, if you get in the way of becoming the greatest swordsman, I'll make you slash your stomach. But now last arc he did the reverse. He sacrificed himself to see, like, Luffy is the one who will be Pirate King, and I think he pointed out a line that sort of, like, serves as the bridge between those, where he's like, I can't call myself the greatest swordsman if I can't protect my crew. So it's like the crew, he folded his desires to protect the crew, which was also part of the Mr. One fight, into his desire to become the greatest swordsman. So I forgot about that line. I actually don't remember exactly where it is. I'd have to reread that comment of where he said that, the greatest swordsman has to be able to protect this. Maybe it was even in Thriller Bark. Like, there's a few places he could have said it, and I'm sure he said it, I just don't specifically remember exactly when at the moment. But yeah, it was neat. And those are all of my comments. Unless you had anything to say about that, or...
No.
Yep, that's fine. So, time to get into the reading. So yeah, we get one of those sort of, like, chapters that goes from the end of one arc into the beginning of the other. So, everyone's leaving Thriller Bark. Even Lola is leaving are planning to leave. And we see something else in the shadows of the mist. Some giant thing with two shiny spots that look like eyes. What the fuck? I'm pretty sure, I feel like Oda's doing a, like, look, there's still... because, there were ships vanishing even before Moria came there, but he's doing, like, a little, like, there's always a mystery thing, because I have no idea if this will ever get revisited, but it's just like, what the I'm sure the theory crafters have had a fucking field day with this for, like, 10 years, because what the fuck, yeah. Oh yeah, so, this is also kind of interesting considering where we end off the stretch of chapters. But Luffy decides that, Ace has his own adventures, so he's not going to run off and find him because his papers, his Viver card is not looking so great. And then we cut to Kuma talking to Sengoku and Garp on in Marijoa, the capital, and Kuma Kuma failed completely, and Sengoku gives him shit, but that's about it. Any comments on the real the true end of Thriller Bark before we move on to the next arc?
I still haven't fully processed, like, maybe that's the point, maybe he's supposed to still be kind of mysterious at this stage, but like I don't really know what's going on with Bartholomew Kuma, why he's like, I still don't quite understand why he left the crew there, like he didn't take anyone. I don't know. And then like things get even weirder in the next arc, so I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, Kuma is definitely one of the most mysterious characters. Like I've said that I want to know more about Blackbeard, but Kuma and someone else who I won't mention yet, they're like they've taken sets of actions that are interesting but we don't know why they took those actions. So Kuma's up there as like characters I want to learn more about, like see the backstory of and like why, because he's supposed to be this government tool, yet he's clearly helped, or he quote unquote killed Zorro, by giving him the pain from Luffy. He didn't expect him to survive that, as he said later, but it's he came back empty-handed. So yeah, even though he's supposed to be the one who does the government's bidding. So yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about. But so anyway, they reach the red line. They are halfway there. I like how everyone talks about sort of like because like Frankie and Robin got to the Grand Line at separate times. Like Frankie was there for like over 30 years ago, and Robin got here 5 years ago. So they just sort of mentioned when they first got there, because we saw Brooke. We saw him go there in his flashback, and the other 5, Chopper was born there, obviously, and the other 5 we saw go there. So it's neat to see him just mention the 2 we don't know when exactly they got to the Grand Line until now. So
yeah, this part was pretty cool, just seeing like parts of the crew, like certain people were like reminiscing on like, oh, I remember the last time we were at the Red Line, and I don't know, it's just more fun character interactions. It's good. It's one of those sentimental
and that's what happens
moments.
Afterwards.
Like, look at how far we've come.
Yes, and everyone's messing around on the ship. Like we finally see like the shark submerge, because he mentioned it. Frankie mentioned it back when they had Sunny, because he was mentioning the dock system, or it was early Thriller Bark, I think, too, where because there's number 2 is Mary, number 1 is it's Nami's waiver. He just redesigned he gave it like a seahorse thing, and number 3 is the shark submerge, which is taken by like the worst possible. All the Devil Fruit users are the one who goes down, like... Yeah. Guys. And sure enough, they almost get attacked. And so, one thing I like about the rabbit attack is Usopp's reaction, because, like... So, if you remember back in Arlong Park, he sees Momu, and he's losing his shit from this wounded sea monster, like, because it's a giant sea monster, of course. Usopp, probably hasn't seen anything like that yet. But now he sees this bunny monster who's probably even bigger. He's not wounded, it's pissed off, and he's just like, he's not that big. He doesn't seem very big. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. And this is Usopp the coward, and I just thought that, I always thought that was like cool little bit, because it's comparing it to Oars, but, he's more experienced now. He has no reason to get afraid over something. So it's like, yeah, it's just cool. Anyway, out of the beaten monster becomes Kamie and Pappag, who you actually messaged me because they're from the Hachi cover story. Hachi saved them from the belly of a different monster. Like, they even reference the fact that they keep getting eaten because they're so stupid. Like, oh man,
signature Oda.
Yeah, like we were talking about last time, it's just like so many of these characters are so stupid that someone like Kuma, who has like basic intelligence, comes across as like smart. And I do love the gags where they're all reacting and everyone's like, hey, mermaid, first time for everything. Like Zorro's memory just straight up vanishes out of his head. Like because he found brain bleach. He somehow found brain bleach, and he bleached his memory of Kokoro being a mermaid. And I've always found Pappag's like backstory funny, because he's like, I learned how to talk because I was born a starfish and I thought I was a human. So I learned, like, that's just how it works. Okay.
Yep.
Like, he's not even, like, a fishman, or he's literally just a starfish. He's just, like, so, well, because animals in One Piece have always been, like, basically sentient. Like, Karoo could communicate with Chopper. They just don't speak, you know, human language. But otherwise, they're, like, acting and expressions, you know, their desires are usually pretty, like, animalistic. Like, they're just, you know, they're still just animals, but that at the same time, they're more, you know, anthropomorphic, I suppose is the word. Like, they have human elements to them. And so, of course, the logical extension is Pappag, a starfish who's basically a human. He's even a fashion designer. So, yeah. But anyway, then we find out the sort of conflict where Kamie's friend is captured by the flying fish riders, and Macro, the slaver, who is also in the cover story with Hachi. But yeah, they decide to help. Oh, and also we get a tease of Duval, who really hates the Straw Hats for some reason.
Specifically, one member of the Straw Hats. We don't know who.
Nope, not yet.
Or why.
Yeah, see, like, these, honestly, like, I remember back when these were coming out, people weren't sure how long this arc was going to be. Like, now it's considered part of Saobody, but originally Duval was, like, its own arc, because the flying fish, because it's a different location. He's not on Saobody, he's on his hideout in the middle of the ocean, right? So, yeah, and again, people weren't sure how long it was going to be. But yeah, we see Hachi again. The Straw Hats head in. He tries to disguise himself, it doesn't work. But they do decide to help Kamie anyway, because she went in on her own. Because
I did think
it's kind
it
of
was
like, or go on. Sorry.
Well, no, you finish your thought and then I'll jump in.
No, I want to hear yours.
Oh well, I was going to say that it was
subjects.
Interesting how how Oda is now like bringing back a character from a previous arc. In this instance, like a previous antagonist in the form of Hachi.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was a little skeptical of the part where Nami's just like, oh, it's okay, Hachi's actually innocent. So, like, I mean, I think what the rest of the arc does, enough to kind of justify Hachi and Nami, like, that beef kind of, I don't want to say it's non-existent, but I don't know, I feel like when it initially, when that moment initially happened, because, like, that was an interesting character baggage for Nami and for Hachi, and it felt like it was just kind of getting brushed under the rug, which, I mean, to be fair, I guess Hachi wasn't the most, Hachi wasn't the most,
no, he was always kind of a dumbass,
of the Arlong group. He was kind of the goofier of that group of pirates. But then at the same time, it just, like, him getting brought back and seeing, like, because we learned so much about, like, less, I guess, Hachi specifically, but we were kind of getting, like, secondhand information about Hachi based off of other reveals.
Well, even Arlong, too. Yeah, later on we find out more about, and the Fishman race in general. Like, it's not necessarily wrong for Arlong to hate humans, as he does. Like, there's more to it that we find out. And, yeah, well, see, it's like, I agree that Hachi, you know, wasn't that bad, all things considered. Like, he did Arlong's orders and stuff, but he was always kind of a dope. But, like, the other thing I see is that, like, well, because what you have here with Kamie is she jumps in to try and save Hachi herself. So you have a sort of moment like with Kobe and Elvira. Like, when Kobe's, like, crying about how helpless he is, Luffy says, I don't like you. But when Kobe decides to fight, Luffy will fight for him. And so that's kind of what's going on here. Kamie, she goes in to fight herself, even though she's completely useless. And, like, by sort of waving away the Hachi thing, you know, Nami's sort of, she just, you know, even in the moment she validates the need to desire for everyone to go. Like, she removes any sort of, like, you know, ambiguity, so everyone can save Kamie without having to worry about it. So that's the thing. Nami is just kind of manipulative in general. And so, like, I'm not sure if I'm saying, like, because she does in the end say that she doesn't really forgive Hachi after this arc. But you know, she by the end of it, she's outright crying when he's getting hurt. So it's like she does give him a second chance. So
yeah, I do.
I'm not sure.
I do really like that aspect of it. I don't know if it's just like if this was like the exact translation, or maybe it was just changed a bit in like the localization. But I think it was just the use of the word like he's actually innocent, which obviously isn't true. Like, even if he's a goofball. Like, again, this arc gave me so much to kind of be interested in Hachi, because thinking of, like, his background as, like, a fishman and, you know, all the stuff that went on that we haven't discussed yet. But then, like, thinking how, like, the way, like, the timeline goes, because, like, all that stuff happened before he joined the Arlong Pirates. But the Arlong stuff for us came before all of this. So it's just interesting to think of like how Hachi would have gotten to that point. And yes, even though he might be a goofball, he's still like he's not entirely innocent because he did work alongside that group and he was following orders like you said. So
yeah, he tried to fight Zorro. He tried to stop Sanji from saving Luffy. So like he did do some things that are wrong because he was on the opposing side. But so see, I guess I agree with the translation's weird with him being innocent.
But maybe that's exactly. I mean, maybe it's not specifically the translation. Maybe that is exactly what Oda was trying to get across. But then again, like I said, it's more of a minor complaint for me because I think the rest of the arc kind of does enough to justify it, and I can understand like how him being forgiven and it works. Like it all works in the end. Maybe I'm just getting too hung up on terminology.
A little thing. Well, it is. It's important because like, and the other question is like, does she actually believe he's innocent? Probably not because she doesn't forgive him in the end. But but she's also and like I said, she's manipulative, so she might just be giving the others room to act. Because like, they're going to be considerate of her feelings. Like like Sanji's even saying like forget Hachi, but we should save her, right?
Yeah.
But saving not if they take Kami away, like they're just back to ground zero. Like Hachi's in prison, so it's like might as well save him too. Figure things out later because they're in the middle of a fight. So it's like there's a few ways to look at it. So
that's true.
But yeah, yes. So I don't know, it's neat. And they get their fight, and everyone gets to show off a little bit. Like we see a bit more Brooks fighting style. We see the Sunny. Like the roar cannon or the Gaon cannon. I love Luffy's reaction to it, where he's just his eyes are just like starbursts, and he's blown away by how fucking awesome that laser beam is. Like that's a great reaction. Yeah, but yeah, the fighting's cool. I like it. More goofiness. Oh yeah, and it's also kind of neat to see Hachi, because Hachi's he's able to take down mooks and stuff, because even if he's this old antagonist, he was the lieutenant of Arlong's crew, so he's he saves Zorro because Zorro's still wounded from Kuma, but then he gets saved himself because he gets the Haki over it. So I don't know.
Yeah, because now that even thinking back to the Arlong arc, it was interesting how we got this brief moment with Zorro and Hachi. Because, even when Zorro fought, there's almost a bit of a recurring element with Zorro and Hachi, because when Zorro fought Hachi, it was less that, Hachi was the problem for him, and more that, his wounds from Mihawk were the bigger obstacle he was trying to overcome. And so then, here, in this little moment, he's also injured, so, Hachi, this time, instead of, he's fighting alongside him instead of against him. I don't think there's any real symbolic meaning behind that. I just think it's kind of cool.
I didn't realize that either, because why is Zorro always wounded every time he meets Hachi? Poor dude, he just keeps getting wrecked. But yeah, so do you have anything else to say on the fighting, or can we get to Duval coming out?
Yeah, I really didn't have
it's fun. But
there's just not much to say about it. I had fun reading it, but I don't have much to.
It's pretty short too. I wasn't expecting to spend. It's just one chapter, and it ends with the reveal. Which because I've said that this is my favorite gag in One Piece, but this might be the one gag that makes me laugh the fucking hardest. How did you feel about Duval's face reveal? Coming at it for the first time, I don't imagine you knew about it beforehand.
No, I didn't know. My very first, when I first saw Duval with the mask and stuff, I was like, oh, maybe this is another previous character who's come back and has a grudge against somebody for wrecking him. No,
Morgan or Arlong or Craig was what people were suggesting at the time.
But no, it's a new character, but also something that had been set up before. So I was not entirely false. God damn it, Oda. Of course he would look exactly like the botched drawing of Sanji.
Right. It's
So
so
his
perfect because like the drawing doesn't it's it's just this goofy looking sketch, but then no, it actually exists in real life. And not I love how Robin's like he's sure to have an interesting death. Like everyone and Brooke is just fucking laughing his ass off like I love well Hachi's even like yeah, they do look identical and like no, they don't. But oh my god, it's hilarious. Though what I also thought, because his whole thing is that he was doing fine just being a dick himself, but until the government came after him or someone, or bounty hunters or something, because of his wanted poster. And so one thing that I would say all three of these arcs explore, Duval, Saobody, and Amazon Lily, is well because they sort of the world government is this big domineering system, but a lot of what we see is the victims, especially in this one, the victims of that system, where Duval was the victim of a mistaken bounty poster. We find out about the whole slave thing with fishmen and mermaids, and Duval is even a slaver, so they're all sort of the products of the world government, sort of, and we'll see more of that later. So I thought that was interesting when I realized it, because because everyone's sort of like reacting against each other here, but in the end they also all kind of unify against that system because of the Straw Hats bring everyone together. So because Duval becomes an ally and helps out after they fix his face problem.
Yeah, I like how Sanji is just like, oh, I just remodified his bone structure or whatever. So now he doesn't have to worry about being caught by the Marines because of his bounty, because now he doesn't look the same.
Right. Yep. And then there's a bit more fighting. Mermaids are super fast, and Kamiya saves Sanji. Wayne's I was gonna say the face remodeling thing is kind of like what he did with Wayne's on the shit on the train. Because he did the same thing there. So I like how it's like a consistent power set of Sanji's now, as he could just plastic surgery with his fucking
You're
foot.
right. I forgot about that. Yes, it's a recurring thing.
Oh, and we also see Luffy. Duval brings out his boar, his buffalo or whatever it was, and Luffy defeats it without lifting a finger. So you might have seen that before with the foaming at the mouth. Well, he does it later. He does it later too. Yes. So yeah, this is because they do reference it later, but this is Haki because Shanks did it when he stepped onto Whitebeard's ship. And to draw an even further comparison is because what he does before passing out, is he runs away in fear. And if you'll remember, in chapter 1, Shanks looked at the Sea King and it ran away in fear. So it's like, yeah, a little similar. Just pointing that out.
The foreshadowing.
Chapter 1 foreshadowing for chapter 500 or 494 or 95 or whatever. So yep, that's Oda for you. I don't think I have anything else specific to say about the Duval conflict. Because yeah, the Sanji beats the shit out of him, remodels his face, and everything's cool. Yeah, that's how it goes. It's just a short little arc.
But yeah, I like what it does, because it's setting up important elements for the next arc. Like obviously we gotta get Hachi on their side, so here's an antagonist for them to fight, and also that antagonist becomes an ally, and they become important later. So yeah, good stuff.
Yep. And then through those new allies, they now have information on Saobody Archipelago, which is their next location, which they need to go to the New World, since they need to go down to Fishman Island to get to the New World. Saobody was, I thought it was cool because of the bubbles and stuff, just the big trees. Like, they even specify that it's not an island specifically, so you can, you don't have to worry about your pose, your compass locking, because that's the whole thing. It locks onto magnetic fields of islands, but it's not an island. So yeah. And of course there's the setup with Zorro. He's like, we're on Grove number 1 because the bubble was in the way of the Grove 41. And because so later he's like, tell me how to get to Grove number 1. And it's like, because he needs to get there, of course.
I'd also really liked the part where Usopp and Sanji just like, no, don't leave, you're gonna get lost. Like, this has happened so many times that they know what's up.
Exactly. And even though like he's like, even a child could show me around, and or a child wouldn't be able to get lost, and like, but then just like the fates intervene and give Zorro like it's so stupid. Zorro's so stupid.
There was also a little panel when they were like getting to the island. Because I don't have the physical volumes in front of me now, I have no idea. I don't exactly remember when it happened, but I just like this part where Robin or whatever, like they were explaining the resin of the trees that like creates the bubbles and whatnot, and Robin's just like, ew, it's sticky, and just like rubs it on Usopp, and Usopp's like freaking out. And again, I feel like that's another one of those little moments that's just like, yeah, Robin's getting more comfortable around the crew, because before, I mean, maybe I'm taking it out of proportion now, but like, I don't know, I seem to recall her like keeping her distance before, and now she's just like, again, like she's just being herself and just like, get this off of me.
Yeah. Well, that's what I talked about last time with the whole, big emperor thing, is, she was being herself where she wasn't when she first, snuck onto the crew. Like, so now she's, being honest and this is gross. Usopp's right there. I'm going to wipe it on Usopp. And he's like, hey, don't do that. Yeah, it's funny. So anyway, there's a bit of adventuring in Saobody. They mess around with the bubbles, and we find out about. So they're called the World Nobles. They also get called the Celestial Dragons, and most of the fan base will call them that. I say most because I am way more petty. Basically, I think Heavenly Dragons, like, it sounds about the same, but there's other terms that were translated as heavenly that are supposed to sound like because the original Japanese is Ten Ryu Bito, which is 10 is like heavenly or holy, and Ryu is dragon. So it's like, so there are other words that, use the 10 part that it basically needs to be consistent. I think it should be consistent, especially because these things are all connected, the things that are called heavenly by the official translation later, but it's not retroactively. It should be celestial if they should stick to one or the other. I personally think heavenly sounds a little better, so I call them heavenly dragons, even though the official translation will call them celestial dragons. Because like I said, I'm petty. So anyway, but we get introduced to them. There's the pirate dude, Devil, who's got the slave collar. He's he's given up on the new world. He's desperate for to go back to his family, and the collar blows up, and then the heavenly dragons come in, the slave owners, and they fucking shoot his body like. So yeah, how'd you feel about the heavenly dragons being introduced? Because they are fucking evil.
Yeah, they're scum. They're bad.
Yeah. Well, it's like, because like I said, the sort of, I was talking about, the government as this system, and they're basically like the absolute power of that system because they created the world government. The 800 years ago, 20 kings, banded together to create the world government. That's what Pappag says. Their descendants are these guys. Like, so they didn't even do anything. They were just born to some, they're just descended from some guys, and now they have like absolute power, pretty much. Like that's the thing, is like they mentioned later how fishmen and mermaids used to be classified as fish, which is why it was legal to keep them as slaves, because they're animals. So human slavery is illegal, yet it exists because the heavenly dragons, they buy slaves. They want slaves. They feed all. They need it for their deeds, and it's fucking. So even though it's illegal, they're allowed to do it basically, and as a result, others are kind of allowed to do it too because they need this slave market to get what they want. So that it creates this system that has victims like Hachi and Kame, and even Duval's a product of that system. He's only a slave trader because it pays. So yeah,
this is another one of those arcs, which like I wouldn't be the person to dig into it all because I'm ill-informed on the topic. But this is another one of those arcs that just kind of reminds me that, like, if you wanted to, like, analyze One Piece from, like, a political lens, I think you could, like, I feel like that's something Oda pays enough attention to, because, like, some stories probably don't really care about, like, or they pay less attention to, like, certain aspects of the world building, like, how would this affect this, and yada, yada, yada. But I don't know, like, One Piece seems like it'd be a really interesting, like, political read. Not that as I said, like, I'm not super informed on politics. I haven't done much reading on it, so I wouldn't be the person to do it. But it just seems really interesting.
There's a video called like an anarchist's analysis of One Piece. I don't think the video is particularly great because he starts and ends it like a generic review. And he also just, he only talks about the world government because he can't, like, because the thing about how, like, One Piece in general, it's very individualistic, where it's like the life of the individual, where it's like, Robin's life is worth, value because other characters have value, because, and she's given value to her life from the other characters. So it's like, the government's like, oh yeah, kill one person to save 1,000, kill 1,000 people to save the world. They'll do that, but One Piece is pretty against that idea. So, there's definitely, and it is a story that involves politics and, ruling, authority. It explores it. So there's definitely room for political reading. But, like, the video, like, it kind of, like I said, it only talks about the government. It kind of ignores, like, because there are good rulers in the story. We've seen Dalton. We've seen Cobra. Like, or, Vivi's dad. Like, so it's not as though every king is a shitbag. So, and he kind of dodges around that. And he does bring up some interesting, like, real life allusions to like things that are similar to real life things, which I thought was kind of neat. It was, I guess it's not a terrible video, but it I don't know, if I talk about the similar subjects, I might do a video. I've got plans. I've got so many videos planned. Fuck. Oh god, I definitely want to do one about the Marines. I think I mentioned that before. So anyway, they get to Shaki's bar.
And this is when we find out that One Piece was actually a tournament arc all along. And all the rivals get introduced, and it becomes a real shonen, because it wasn't a shonen before now.
Yeah, well, because I like how it's like, so apparently this was all an editor's suggestion. Like, an editor was like, hey, wouldn't there be like rivals and stuff? And Oda's like, sure, and he just like designs like 9 characters in like an hour, or that's the legend. That I'm sure it took a bit more time than that, but like he basically just like, that's the thing. He basically like when he planned the arc, he didn't like plan for these characters, I guess. So they just kind of came in at an editor's suggestion, is what I've heard. But yeah, and I like how it makes sense. Like, yeah, there are other routes to the Grand Line. Of course, there'd be rivals. So, from, like, the introductions, and even, I guess, the rest of the arc, what do you think about the other supernovas, the other super rookies? Their fucking designs are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them look really cool. It was kind of, I felt like it was pretty easy to tell, like, which ones were important and which ones were just kind of fodder. Not that, like, having fodder is a bad thing, because, a lot happens later. So, like, there are other important characters who could benefit from just squashing these rookies.
Right. But a few definitely stand out. Well, one I've been thinking about for a while, but Trafalgar Law.
Yeah,
is like, I've always felt like. Go on. I want to, because
he's a character that I knew existed. Because I'm pretty sure Best Guy ever mentioned him in a video.
Right. He bitches about him a lot.
And I don't remember what was said in that video because I watched it so long ago. So I don't know what Law is about. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, "Yep, that's the guy. There he is, doing the middle finger. That's him."
See, I've always thought about him because I feel like I've always felt like if he's gonna be the aesthetic character you like Deidara or Gin, it might be him. Because he's pretty popular. Like, he was popular. Like, I think in the next popularity poll, he actually ranks pretty highly just from what he does in this arc, which is basically nothing. So, yeah, he's just, like, he caught on. Like, something about his design. Is it the little beard? Is it the sideburns? Is it the baggy eyes? Like, people love him. I think he's popular with girls in particular, which makes sense.
But the interesting thing is that, like, I've heard of Law, but I haven't heard of anybody else, so I don't know how important any of the others might be, because there's another character who shows up who seems to be just as important, if not more so, than Law, because he's got a higher bounty than Luffy.
Yes. Well, he's also the only other one with a subordinate who's also one of the supernovas, because Luffy and Zorro are both over 100, and so are Kid and Killer. So it's like he's got like a Zorro guy there, to someone who's he even has a higher bounty than Zorro. He's more dangerous. So, like, yeah, he's definitely meant to, like, I feel like Kid is like the rival, the sort of to the Luffy, like, in that way. Like, obviously he's got a bunch of other rivals, but with Kid there's definitely something a bit more, like, he's the one who's a little bit above Luffy. Like Luffy fucking invaded Enya's lobby, and this guy still has a higher bounty. Well, and we find out kind of why later is because, like, Kid is actually dangerous. Like, he kills random people. Well, as we find out, it's because those random people, said he couldn't be Pirate King. They laughed at him. They laughed at him for having that dream. But, as Kid says, you have to have the will to be Pirate King in the new world. So, yeah, but he's dangerous, which is why he has a higher bounty than Luffy. But yeah, all their designs are crazy. And we see their powers later, and some of them have some fucking weird fucking power. Like, Kizaru even says, like, man, you ability users are so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, like, Oda, like, this was an editor suggestion. Because, yeah, like, I would have just said, okay, yeah, I mean, this feels less One Piece than previous One Piece, but, like, I don't know, because, like, just throwing around the term, like, rival and whatnot, like, I can't really think of any, like, there hasn't been, like a Sasuke to Luffy's Naruto. Like, there hasn't been a character who, like, is recurring and is, like, maybe not an antagonist, but is, like, at odds with Luffy and, like...
Luffy over an extended period of time like that. Yeah,
it's like there's no one really that pushes Luffy for... Like, how do I want to say it? Like, there's no one who, like, directly pushes Luffy forward. Like, Luffy just kind of pushes himself forward. Or, like, right. His friends push him forward, but, like, he doesn't have that kind of rival. So when I say that, like, all of these quote-unquote rivals being introduced, like, it feels less One Piece than before. I don't know, it's just an interesting thing that I hadn't thought of until all these characters showed up. And it's like, these are your rivals.
Because you're right, it is more... it makes One Piece more shonen because of all these dudes. Because you mentioned the Naruto and Sasuke, but Luffy also doesn't have any, like, because Bleach has, like, rotating rivals where like the first arc and the last arc was Ishida, then it was Renji, then Grimjo, so it kind of like cycles through them before coming back to Ishida. But One Piece doesn't even have that. He just straight up just doesn't, like, he's special. Well, because that's the thing with Luffy is, like, I saw a write up, it was posted by someone on my server from his friend, where it's like, because it's mentioning how, like, over time, things that were once special are becoming less special, and he sort of explained why that's kind of important, because devil fruits were, like, this crazy thing back in the East Blue, like, whoa, a devil fruit. Like, there were 4 characters in the entire, like, first 100 chapters that have devil fruits, and this arc, like, almost all of the supernovas have devil fruits, like, just like, oh yeah, here's a dozen more devil fruit users, like, it's not special anymore, like, and he pointed out some other things where that's also the case, because, like,
I was going to say, while you point that out with the devil fruits, I feel like the moment that really kind of, like, I don't want to say solidifies it, but, like, accentuates that, or, like, really, like, I don't know, but, like, later when he's at Amazon Lily, and these characters are like, oh, we have this curse, and we are snakes, and Luffy's just like, yes. Nah, man, that's a devil fruit. It's like
it kind of goes back to the East Blue, where the devil fruits are mythical again, even though it's in the Grand Line, but Luffy has experience from outside. Yeah, I get what you mean.
So it kind of like that, it not being a curse and it being a devil fruit power is almost kind of like the normalizing factor. Like, oh yeah, it's just a devil fruit. Those exist.
Even though once upon a time, even, like, I think Captain Morgan even said, like, they're like curses. There's things that shouldn't exist, almost. Like, he makes it, like, out like a superstition, but now in the Grand Line, it's just a natural part of the world. Like, oh, hey, that dude has a devil fruit. Whatever. And right now in the story, Haki is this very mysterious power. Like we see on Amazon Lily, characters are using it in weird ways, but, like, I guess it's a spoiler, but in the future, it's not as special anymore. Sort of what the post sort of, like, rationalized, which I thought was cool, is that, like a good example is, like, Bellamy, honestly, because he has a devil fruit, but he isn't shit. He, like, he didn't use his fruit in any imaginative ways. Moria has a really powerful fruit, but he doesn't use it, whereas Luffy does. He has his gears. He's mastering his fruit. So it's not that he's special because he has a devil fruit, but Luffy is a man of action. He makes that quality special by refining it and by by making it beyond just what it is. So and I always thought that was a nice observation. But yeah, it's just that's what the setting is. It's just like, the things that aren't are special now might not be in the future. So we'll see how that goes. But
I guess, I mean, that is kind of like a shonen thing in a way. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, actually now that you mention that's true of Naruto too, because it's like the Sannin, they all summon their big animals. Doesn't that seem cool and stuff? But then we get to war and that ain't shit. So, like fucking the third Hokage and Orochimaru was once like the strongest characters in the series fighting, and now it's like, oh okay, sure.
Although I guess it can kind of depend on like how the narrative uses those things, because like with One Piece, we're still exploring the world and finding out new things about the world, so it kind of makes sense that like they'd be ignorant to stuff like Haki, which is more normalized elsewhere. Whereas like with Naruto, Naruto's not. I don't think Naruto's a very big, expansive world, and there's no real like adventure involved with it. Not to say that like the normalization kind of, like, of stuff like summoning is inherently bad, but like it feels like less. I don't know, less of like in a progression. I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but maybe you understand what I'm saying.
I mean, well, because like Boruto even does like expand on it. Like I don't know how much of it, because I've watched like 70 episodes or so, and like one thing I thought was, because I remember we even bitched about it back on the Nen Show, where it's like, oh yeah, you passed at the academy, great. Now you have a chance to fail again if your sensei doesn't like you, and it's like, well, why go through 30 years of training and succeed just to fail again? And Boruto actually like. Not only are the Genin are actually have like higher requirements, like they're doing like fucking, wall walking training and water training, which Naruto didn't do until the Chunin exam. So like they're naturally stronger out of the gate, and if they pass the academy, they're just ninjas. There's no like failing again. The requirements are just stricter, basically. So it's like the setting is moving forward, and there's like more technology around. But it's all like, the setting's all explored, so they have to like move forward as a whole, where it's like with One Piece, everything's much more segmented. Like, the news is basically controlled by the world government and their newspapers. So it's like, news of like technology and infamous people, like they control it all. So it's harder for you to get, like, that's why I was talking about like, yeah, people know about, Cypherpole and stuff. So like Iceberg and the Galley Law shipmen, but most of the information is controlled by the government, so it's like, yeah, they could leak, but how far is it going to really get across the world? So and as we see in the Cyberpole cover story, things are weird going on with those guys.
I realize, like, but anyway, in bringing this up, it's topical, but I'm kind of jumping around again. But I liked how, like, with Amazon Lily, like, it was just this island of people who all knew Haki, and like, do I think any of those characters are going to be relevant again, other than one, which I'm not going to say anymore? I mean, you've done the reading, you know who I'm talking about, but I don't know why I'm being coy about it. But like, do I think any of those characters are going to be relevant again just because they know Haki? No.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, I don't know, it's like, a thing that, like...
The fact that they're using it again kind of normalizes it in themselves. Like, the fact that we're learning more about it is like, oh yeah, this is a thing,
I just think it's cool that, like, normal. There's this place where it's just so normalized, and Luffy not really understanding how to use his Haki is, like, a big disadvantage for him. Whereas, like, up until this point in the narrative, it has been, like, a thing that, like, we haven't encountered really anybody who uses it, other than, like... Or I should say the Straw Hats haven't, like, directly fought anyone who, like...
Well, there was the Sky Islanders they had the form of Haki. They just called it mantra because they don't have it. They just had a different name for it. So it's like, it's been around. But yeah, it's different. We'll talk about that later though, I think. Because I just realized we're like an hour
back on mantra now, because you're like, that's a form of Haki, and I'm like, oh wait,
Yeah, well, see, it's like, I could explain it because they've kind of, like, showed it all, and it's not really, like, a spoiler, so fuck it, I'm just gonna explain it. There's basically 3 shades of Haki. They're all called colors, which is why I use shades. Color of observation, it's basically mind reading. It's basically mantra. So that, like, the Sandersonia, the green, the longer one, she was using that to dodge Luffy's attacks because she could predict them. That's basically color of observation. Color of armament is what Sentomaru and the other one, the bigger one, Marigold, that was her name. It's basically a shield and a weapon. Like, it negates Devil Fruit powers when you attack with it. So, like, it makes, if you punch someone with, like, you could hit Logias with it, basically. So it's like a neutralizer to like, if you punch someone with armament Haki, like, Crocodile wouldn't be able to disperse because of it, because that's what armament Haki is. Then there's, I think they actually do name this one, I forget what they call it. I've always called it Conqueror's Haki. I think they call it like the Emperor Haki or something like that. It's basically the what Shanks has used too, where it knocks people out. And that one's a bit different, but so yeah, that's basically what Haki is. The 3 different types of it. So and we'll begin seeing more of it after this point in the story. Like, I feel like honestly, like, Oda kind of, like, finally, like, figured it out in this arc, because, like, I feel like more Haki should have come up in Ace versus Blackbeard, but it was never mentioned, because, like, one line I've always thought was a little weird is, like, Blackbeard hits Ace, and he's like, yeah, it's been a while since you felt a normal punch, right? But if he was in the New World, he would have been hit by Haki users, so he would have felt normal. I don't know, I've always thought that was weird. So it always gave me the sense that Oda didn't, like, he probably knew what Conqueror's Haki was, because he had Shanks use it in Chapter 1, and Blackbeard mentioned the idea of Haki on Jaya, but, like, I feel like he didn't get armament and, mantra sorted out as Haki until, like, this arc, and he decided, yeah, this is Haki. So I do like how he retroactively included mantra in it, if he did, because that's what it seems like. So, yeah, just thought I'd explain it. Because again, it's not really a spoiler. But anyway, moving on. It's been a while. So, we got off topic there, damn. So anyway, we see the Heavenly Dragon, Saint Charlos, where he's exerting his power. He sees an attractive woman. You're my wife now. That guy who got in the way of my path, I will shoot him. And, like, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And... except Zorro. Zorro doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I loved when Zorro just showed up. And again, because, like, he wasn't there. He has no idea who these guys are. So he's just like, okay, I'm going to cut you down. And, yeah.
Well, he's like, are you lost? Like, it's funny, Zorro is the one telling a fucking, basically what's a god that he's like, are you lost? Like...
The irony.
But Zorro's the one who gets lost. Well, and that's what I realized reading this scene is I actually thought about Enru's line back on Skypiea where he's like, the people don't fear God, fear is God. And that's because, like, the heavenly dragons, they build themselves up as gods. Like, they are above these commoners. Like, they don't even breathe the same air. They put on these bubbles because they don't want to do that. So they put themselves so far above. And they do have a lot of power. They have money. They have, political power. If they get attacked, the Admirals, some of the strongest, people in the world will come to defend them. So it's like, all that power leads to fear. So everyone's like too afraid to do anything except for the Straw Hats because they don't have any fear, and so they're willing to, the Heavenly Dragons are no longer God when it comes to the Straw Hats, pretty much. So it's pretty quick. And it's especially later on. Ooh, this one's good too, though.
I do think maybe this idea had come up a little before, but I just distinctly remember, like, Luffy saying, I don't read the paper. Like, he says that at least twice in this arc. And the one character says, like, oh, information is a weapon. And I do think it's kind of interesting that, like, because the Straw Hats, or at least Luffy, is, like, so cut off from the rest of the world, like, he doesn't know anything about these people. So on one hand, yeah, he can just go up and, like, confront these gods, and he, like, doesn't even care, because, like, they're just normal people to him. But at the same time, like, that can kind of backfire on him, as we sort of see in this arc as well.
I will talk about that because that's super, super important. But, well, yeah, because you're right. He doesn't, by not treating him like a god, he points out, because that's the thing. He's not anything special. He's just some fat asshole. Like, he's not really a god. He's just a human. He's not actually inherently more special than anyone. It's just the world decided that he was special because he was born, basically. Even though, like, look at him. He's just this ugly fucking idiot. This irredeemable asshole. And so when he gets fucking wrecked, it's so good. But that's a bit later. Oh, man.
But again, I feel like this is sort of like with Spandam, how, like, you see these, like, irredeemable shitheads, and, like, you just want to see them get punched in the face, and then they get punched in the face, and it's like, yes. But then, like...
exactly.
Even, like,
Oda's giving you what you want.
But even then, like, just punching them in the face doesn't necessarily get rid of the problem, because, like, we saw with Spandam, he kept coming back. Like, even in the flashback, he got beat up, and
even
he
now
came
he's
back
still, like,
later and was
he's
a
in a
bigger
full body
threat.
cast, and yeah, he's even on a full body cast in the cover arc. Like, he's still around.
And so then, like, with this guy, like, he gets punched in the face, but then it triggers this whole big, what's the sequence of
climax
events
that ends. Yeah, yes, exactly. With Kizaru coming in and the pacifistas, and so everything goes fucking haywire. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So. Yeah, and one other thing I do like about this scene is I like seeing the other Supernovas react to Zorro, where it's like...
yeah, like the one person runs in and, like, stops him and is like, no, my dead brother or something. It's like, you
yes,
trying
Julia
to get us all
Brennan,
killed,
she's
you
being
idiot?
Tricky. Exactly. Like, I thought we pirates had a agreement not to cause trouble. Well, especially like Rouge's reaction, the big guy with the beard. He's like, the first mate, he doesn't look like the type to obey someone. So why, the captain must be something else.
Yeah.
And that is true. Like, I love how people say it. Like, they said it back on Whiskey Peak too. It's like Zorro seems like more of a captain than Luffy even, but at the same time, he's still like last arc. He will die for Luffy, which is really just a testament to how awesome Luffy is because he's able to get someone like this on his crew.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because wasn't there even a point, wasn't it, at Whiskey Peak where they're like, oh, this guy must be the captain because, I mean, look at him.
Yes, it was exactly when Zorro was fighting Whiskey Peak and they were, Igaram and gang was like, what the fuck is going on? This guy must really be worth 30 million. It can't be that drunk, the guy who ate himself into a food coma. No, that guy can't be the captain. Oh, man. So, yeah, but anyway, Kamie gets kidnapped because of a tip-off from Macro's gang. God, Macro? I fucking hate that guy. Like, cause he's a fishman who enslaves other fish and mermaids. Like, what a fucking... Oh, God, piece of shit. I just thought I'd mention that.
Before that had happened, I liked the little montage of, like, the characters were at the amusement park and just having fun, just hanging out.
Yeah.
It was cool. But then
yes,
bad things
everyone's
happen.
Adorable. Technically, since we got so off topic, you really just went way back. No, it's fine. So anyway, so yeah, Duval comes in to help. Oh yeah, I liked one little moment where like Chopper's freaking out and Brooks being calm because like he's had a lot of time to wait. Okay, he's good at waiting.
Yeah.
So,
And then they show up and they
was,
hit him in the head because they're like, "What are you doing?"
Oh yeah, because he's like, "Relax, Chopper," and they relax extra hard, and Usopp gets mad, and Chopper's even crying after, like, "They got mad at us, Brooke." Like, Chopper's so cute. Oh man, he was just listening to Brooke. But yeah, Pappag. Pappag. He points out more of the issues with the Saobody, where it's like. Fishmen and mermaids basically aren't allowed there because they'll get captured. It's dangerous, like, because we even saw Hachi and her Kamiya disguise themselves because as humans because they have to because Sabody's fucking shit. Oh man. Okay. So yeah, getting to the auction house, I also really like a Kid. I like his comment is just so perfect on the Heavenly Dragons because like he's like, man, the villains of the world, us pirates, like, we're better than them. And he's right. He's absolutely fucking right. Like, goddamn. It's just no fucks given. And Law is here for some reason. He flips off Kid. Any comments so far before I get to something else?
I mean, I guess I don't know if this is... I'm not going to say that actually because, well... Yeah, no, I'm not going to say that because that's like me talking about like things I heard from... like beforehand, so like they're not
especially
like they could be false spoilers. I don't know. I guess I thought Law was going to be more stoic, but him just kind of he looks like I don't know, the bags under his eyes. He looks like some like punk person, and it like flipping the guy off. Not what I expected from Law. So I guess I can say
he doesn't even do it for any reason. He's just like Kid they just like see each other, and he's like he didn't even say Kid didn't even say anything bad. He's like, oh hey, it's Law. I heard I've heard some bad stories about him, and Law just like flips him off randomly for no reason. Like well, I don't know.
I know I've definitely seen that panel before, which I don't know why I was surprised by it then because I recognize it. It just feels like a very non-One Piece thing because I'm pretty sure that's the first time anyone's like flipped somebody off in this story, and that's
not
that's
the only time because I can think of one later instance, but the first time so far.
Yeah, the first time so far is what I meant.
Of course, yeah, you wouldn't know any better.
I know other shonen stories have done that, but like I did anybody do that in Naruto or Bleach? Maybe, I don't know. It just felt like weird, but like not out of place either. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, it was cool. Law, he's being weird. He's good.
And I think I wonder if part of because this is a kids manga. Kids are supposed to be able to read this, so I think the West is way more harsh on the middle finger. So seeing it as a Westerner, it's like, oh hey, that's interesting as a kid or in a kids series, so to speak. So I get that's part of it, I suppose. But so anyway, we cut to Kamie. She's getting thrown in her cage. Disco is abusing her, and he gets mysteriously knocked out, foaming at the mouth. So, do you recognize this guy from Volume 3, the Shanks and Buggy flashback? Because I did when I saw this chapter, and I lost my fucking shit.
I didn't recognize him from the Volume 3, but, like, I saw it in the SBS, that, like, it was the thing that happened. I was like, oh my god.
Oda, there's, like, almost 10 years in between that flashback and this. Like, because we did find out from Whitebeard that, Shanks and Buggy were on the Pirate King's crew. So here's a Silver's fucking Rayleigh, the first mate of Gold Roger. Oh, man. God. I love it's just so good seeing Rayleigh, because he's so fucking cool. He's just this cool old dude who just likes getting drunk and protecting ladies and gambling and shit, and he's just like, oh, a former fucking living legend. Like, Garp even says, like, yeah, we can't take on two legends at the same time. Like, going after this guy while they're worrying about Whitebeard? Oh no, we can't do that. Like, oh, motherfucking Rayleigh.
I love how we can be this deep into the story and, like, we're still getting these big reveals.
Yeah. Well, it's like, see, it's like for me, I guess part of it is like it's almost out of nowhere, but it's also like makes perfect sense as we find out more about the crew, and what happened after Roger's death or even before, and it's like because it's so out of left field, like, oh shit, this is a big deal guy character showing up. And it's like, oh, I don't know, he just carries a lot of presence for me when I still reread this part, and it's just like, oh, motherfucking Rayleigh! And now I have extra context of what he does later. It's just cool. It's just cool to see Rayleigh. Oh, man.
I guess it really just puts, something like that just puts into context how I mean, we've talked a ton about how big of a story One Piece is, but, like, thinking at, like, this point in... Naruto, we're probably getting towards, like, the war arc or whatever, so, like, things are concluding, and same with Bleach.
Yeah.
And, like, Dragon Ball was, like, ending around this time, because I know we passed the chapter where that happened. Like, it was Dragon Ball's last chapter, and, like, Oda did... Yes. I don't know, someone pointed out in the SBS. So, like...
Yes, that he made the chapter, like, instead of white, he made it, like, grayer because it was a tribute to Dragon Ball's final chapter, yeah.
So, like, we can be... we're, like, so far into the story where, like, even some of, like, the most popular, like, big long-running stories would be, like, wrapping things up, and, like, we're still introducing, like, new characters and, like, big reveals, and One Piece is one of a kind.
Major deals and major information too. Like, we learn stuff about Gold Roger later, like, because like, here's how I'd put it, like, because, like, Naruto and Bleach are both about the same length. Though with Bleach in particular, because what I want to point out is that, because I noted that the end of the Arrancar arc was like the end of Act 2 for the story, chapter. So that was chapter like 423, plus a few for the turn back the pendulum thing. So it was probably closer to 430. Like, that was where the end of Act 2 was, and One Piece hasn't even got to that end of Act 2, and it's already like 70 chapters beyond that. So it's like, that's how much bigger a story this is. So like, structurally, it hasn't.
Like, what makes it so, like, special for One Piece, and, like, I don't want to say that this is the first story to do it, because there's probably other manga or whatever that I haven't read that might also do it, but, like, I think what also makes it cool with One Piece is that it's not a story, like, you could make the argument with Bleach that, like, it's not all, like, it's not all building to one big point, like, it's all one cohesive, like, Bleach is kind of broken up into, like, different sagas or arcs or whatever you call them. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's no, like, reset button on the conflict, I guess, here. Like, it's all building to a big point with One Piece.
Yeah,
like,
but we don't know where that big piece is, because, like, yeah, Bleach hits, yeah, it does, like, every arc, like, Arrancar arc ends, like I said back when we read it, is, like, Ichigo's character arc is definitely not complete, but, like, event-wise, like, story-wise, we were pretty much, like, set. Like, there's nothing that we need to know. Like, we do learn more about stuff, like, retroactively, like, with Ichigo's parents' backstory, but, like, there wasn't a burning need to have that question answered by the end of the arc, so you can kind of see where it could have ended, similar to Dragon Ball in some ways. But, like, with this, it's like, we know it's building up to something, and we can guess at to what it is. Like, obviously Luffy becoming Pirate King is going to happen, but, like, it's still building. It's spending so long building it that, yeah, it's definitely, it's crazy. Did you have any other thoughts on that, or shall we continue?
I was gonna say there was a screenshot that I have here that I know we've passed, but now I don't remember what I was gonna talk about with it.
Say about it, yeah.
Skip it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we get a cut to Garp. So we do find out later why because we keep cutting back to Marijoa and Marineford because shit's happening. But we're only getting alluded to it now. But because yeah, Garp even says like, let's not bother Sengoku about Rayleigh.
Do you want to take on two legends at the same time?
Exactly, like it's foreshadowing to that reveal. So the one thing I also want to point out is just because notice they keep calling Rayleigh the Dark King, and one thing I've noticed about the Conqueror's Haki, the ability to like knock people out, is that so far every character who has it, they either have a title befitting royalty or are literally royalty, or they're gunning for a title like that. So Luffy wants to be Pirate King, Shanks is an Emperor, Rayleigh is the Dark King, Boa Hancock, she's an Empress, the pirate, of Amazon Lily. So it's like so far every character. So I just that's just something I've noticed. Like so I don't know if there's anything to say about that more about that at this point. And that's for and go looking forward. There's some maybe one exception, which is kind of interesting, but yeah, so just something to note is that like every character who has that type of Haki is, either literally royalty or has aspirations to be, the like Pirate King usually. So, it probably matters. So anyway, moving on to the auction. So yeah, the auction is starting. Okay, is Sanji smoking 3 cigarettes there? Oh, you don't have your pages, but it looks like because he's looking at the list of starting bids for prices of like humans and subspecies. Like we get a bunch of name drops for some that we haven't seen yet. Like I don't think we've seen dwarves or minks like knowingly at this point, or long legs or snake necks, but obviously we know about fishmen and giants and mermaids. Apu, the one with the Chinese inspired guy, he is a long arm because he has 2 elbows, so we have seen them. Yeah, it's just pointing out the race list. So anyway, they do find out that the Straw Hats do find out that everything's going on in Grove 1. I like the gag where Duval is like, we were heading to Grove 1 the whole time, and then Chopper, yeah, the boss gets there first, but Chopper arrives first because it was silly. So yeah, as everyone's arriving, we find out who the other legend that the government's gonna fight is, where they're planning to publicly execute Fire Fist Ace, which is effectively declaring war on Whitebeard, because like as Buggy said a while ago, to lay a hand on Whitebeard, one of Whitebeard's men, means he's gonna fuck your shit up. So don't do that. But yeah, I do like how the Straw Hats they're going to try and play by the rules of the auction house. They have money on the ship. They got some. Perona put the treasure haul from Thriller Bark onto their ship, so they're gonna buy. But then it doesn't work. Like they're trying to feed into this system that's wrong in the first place of slave trade and stuff, and so they're completely outmatched by the reason the system is there in the first place. Because Charlos, he immediately outbids the entire auction hall easily because money is nothing to him. And so he's just gonna, he'll just buy her fucking piece of shit. Luffy comes in. Did you have anything to say on stuff thus far, or?
No, I guess not really. We've kind of skipped over a lot, or at least I haven't been keeping up.
Me keep it up, okay. So yeah, everyone arrives. Hachi is revealed as a fishman, and Charlos shoots him, and Nami getting a little she's got tears. she's got a little one on her eye, and then she's looking on in horror, and Hachi's even apologizing, he was trying to make everything up for what he did, and Luffy gets pissed and punches Charlos in the fucking face. Oh, another one of those satisfying punches. So I definitely will have things to say about that, because you said it it does turn out bad later on, but I think one thing I want to make clear, I guess, about the first half is because Luffy's, I've called Luffy reckless in the past, and I think it's kind of wrong to frame it that way, because I don't know. Do you think reckless as a negative? Would you say?
It depends, because like sometimes him being ignorant, not having that information, and just kind of acting on impulse. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's like in this instance, like bad things happen because of it. Like but again, like
yeah, well, because
I don't
later
want to say
on
that
they
it's
get
like directly
fucked.
bad.
Right. But what I want to point out is like. So up to this point, because like Luffy, he's very, I would say it's more like bold, because I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I feel like reckless is a negative thing, but boldness is like the same thing, but like as a positive, because like, he never gives up. He often chooses to fight. And I think the thing about that is like, because yeah, with Aokiji, he got defeated, but at the same time, because he chose to fight, Aokiji didn't go after Robin. He said, oh yeah, you said one-on-one fight, so I guess I can't go after the rest of your crew. Like, because Luffy chose to fight, it turned out good in the end. Like, what happened? What was bad? Like, nothing, no one got really hurt. They all just fought out and everyone was fine, So it's like, there were no real negatives from, even though Luffy lost, because he chose to fight. And so what you kind of have, so looking at this moment in just this small instance, Luffy chooses to fight, fighting breaks out, two heavenly dragons get hit, and they get saved by Rayleigh. Rayleigh comes out, and he just knocks everyone out, and so Luffy's boldness is, in the short term, rewarded because of Rayleigh. So, I just want to mention that now, because basically thus far it's been pretty consistent, where it's like, even when Luffy does, like, because with Crocodile, he got beaten, he kept fighting, he always fights. Like Lucci, he was beaten first, and then he came back and wins. So Luffy always fights, even when it might be dangerous. Like, they fucking busted into Enya's lobby to fight Lucci and save Robin, and it all turned out well in the end, because Luffy chose to fight.
Well, yeah, because, like, in this instance, like, him choosing to fight, it like, the goal he wanted to accomplish, well, then again, I guess he kind of just punched. It might not necessarily have been that. I mean, it's connected to like him wanting to like protect Hachi and the others. Yeah. So like, they are able to escape because he fights. So there is a benefit to it. So like,
because like otherwise, by trying to play by the system's rules, they would have lost Kamiya because they couldn't outbid a heavenly dragon. So they have to subvert the system to save. Like if he did nothing, then she would have never been saved. So yeah, in the short term, everything works out fine.
So like, I mean, there were repercussions because of it, but it wasn't like him punching this big, I forget what they're called, this person, this shithead,
heavenly dragon. Saint Charlos.
But him punching that guy doesn't have any negative repercussions on Hachi or Kamiya. Like, if anything, it later falls back on him and the crew when, all the stuff happens after this, because, like, later, it brings all the people from, it brings, like, the Admiral and one of the Warlords of the Sea to the island, or maybe some of them were already there. I don't know if it was either of them.
Well, the Warlords were converging anyway, because as Doflamingo says next chapter, is the plan for the government is the Warlords of the Sea versus basically the whole might of the government pretty much against Whitebeard, including the Warlords, which is we see in Amazon Lily, with Boa Hancock. And we even see the Warlords at the table together later on. So yeah, it's understandable that Kuma and the kid even says, like, with being this close to Navy headquarters, is like you don't know who you're gonna run into. So yeah, go on. I forget what you're saying.
But yeah, so like,
oh yeah, them being punished. With it has a
like, it doesn't have a negative repercussion on the people he was trying to help. Because even then, like, to say that like it had a negative repercussion on the Straw Hats, I don't know if that would be like entirely fair to say, because the Straw Hats were also on his side. Like, they would have wanted to save them, and I would imagine that they would have done the same thing. Even if they, like, Luffy might have been a bit bolder about it, but I still think that, like, the Straw Hats would have done something, because obviously, as we saw, trying to play into the system did not work. They had to challenge the system. Yes. Which is what the Straw Hats do.
And of course, Luffy is the one who leads, because Luffy is the one who gives no fucks. He's the man of action. He's the one who takes Oda mentioned that ages ago in SBS. Like, it's, it's good. But yeah, I definitely want to, because I've been waiting to talk about the finale of this arc for a while, because 2 weeks, I think, since, or no, 1 week, because we had to delay it. So I've been waiting, I've been gearing up.
I mean, I do think there is something to be said about blindly getting into fights with people who, Luffy doesn't, he doesn't always know who he's going up against, or, what kind of power might be behind them. So,
well, because,
I do think there is a negative element to it, but, it's not as in, it's not as simple as Luffy doing this thing is 100% bad. He should change. Because, again, if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have rescued them.
Right. A lot of the fan base thinks he should change. He should stop being reckless and think more about, but it's at this, I feel like that's a opinion grounded in realism, because realistically, if you try and get into fights that you might not be able to win, you're probably not going to win. But One Piece is fiction, and I think Oda is going for a different message than that. So, and I will explain my thoughts on that later. So anyway, news spreads pretty quickly about the Heavenly Dragon. Although we see the Supernovas reactions. I even love Julia Bonet. She's like, man, Zorro was an idiot, but their captain's a bigger idiot. So, Sengoku's pissed off because he's like, fucking Luffy again. And in this part, the Marine reporting, he even says contact with the guards at the human auction hall. I mean, employment assistant office. It's they all fucking know that human slavery is going on literally right under their noses, right there at Saobody. It's fucking 5 minutes away from the capital of the world. Everyone fucking knows, but again, they allow it. They have to, because of the Heavenly Dragons, the people who formed this system. So, fuckers.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting about this arc, it does have some themes of racism involved, obviously, because the fishmen being treated as they're lesser, and even there's in the auction hall, the people see Hachi,
yes,
and they're like, he might have diseases, I'm scared
who
of
let
this,
that disgusting
scared
thing
of
in
their
here,
existence, but all this stuff. So what was I also gonna say? Shoot, what did you just say that made me think of this? Because I was gonna say, I was gonna respond to
everyone. Everyone knows, this is Sengoku, Fleet Admiral of the Marines, and he's just he's being the Marine fucking said human employment assistant office.
Right, yeah.
They all know.
So the government clearly knows that this thing is happening. It sort of ties into systemic racism as well, because
yeah, right, exactly. Because it was a system that decided human or fish. They said fish 200 years ago.
Yes.
And so slavery is a thing. They decided, the system decided that fishmen were less than people. And that still remains 200 years later. So yeah, that is good. So good point.
The government knows about it too, which I think is kind of important, because I'm trying to think, what was I trying to say with this, and I'm losing track. I don't know. I guess it's something to say that it's not just necessarily individual people who are bad, but the system is also, in a way,
right. Because Sengoku is, honestly, I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's a good person who's serving a bad system. I don't think Sengoku himself has never done anything wrong. He's just there in the system. People like Aokiji and Smoker are also, it's Aokiji in particular is very doubtful about what he does. Smoker is so honest that he butts heads with the system because he doesn't agree with it. He's eat shit to, he can't chase Luffy, eat shit, I'm gonna go chase Luffy. He didn't like being credited for Crocodile because he didn't do it. So it's and Sengoku's just I've always felt because we have only seen little bits of him, but it's definitely he knows of all the wrongdoings, but he's still a Marine. I do think a lot of Marines think they're doing the right thing. And I even talked about Akainu Sakazuki back in NA's lobby, where it's his absolute justice is horrifying, but it's grounded in the idea of doing the right thing. It's just the right thing is in service to this horrible world government where slavery is okay as long as the Heavenly Dragons want it.
Yeah, it's a good way to show that even if someone has a strong moral code of serving the system, and they will do whatever they can to serve the system, if that system is in any way corrupt, then and like they aren't willing to challenge that system in any way, then even if they think that they are doing good by the world because they think that the system will just inherently produce a good result, that might not be the case. Again, this is another thing that I think it's another one of those, like, One Piece it would be an interesting political read. Like, I don't know.
Well, because go on.
Like, I don't know if this would necessarily apply to anything specifically or just anything everything in
obviously
general.
The real world is going to be the real world's going to be way more nuanced and complicated because there's but the one thing I've always thought was very unique about One Piece is the way, like, so compare it to Bleach and Naruto, where they also had their flawed systems. The Shinobi world was flawed, so Sasuke wanted to tear it down. Soul Society was flawed, so Aizen wanted to tear it down. But, like, the characters who want to tear down the system because it's wrong are the antagonists. The good guys are the ones in the system, whereas One Piece is relatively unique in that the one who's the flawed system is very much the antagonist. And there are good people within that system, but if it's going to be torn down, it will likely be because of probably Luffy or his actions in some way, and he's the one outside the system. So it's like, and I've thought about it, like, I think, like, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Hunter x Hunter, like, they all have their systems, the hunters, the heroes, like, the characters are all part of a system. And honestly, and that's pretty common in general. Like, I'm struggling to think, like, I've thought about it, and, like, there are examples like Death Note, where the system is, the criminal justice system, and Kira is the one outside it, but he fails. Like, so whereas with One Piece, I don't think Luffy's going to fail. So One Piece is pretty unique, relatively speaking,
especially
in that regard.
Considering, like, this is, like, it's a Japanese manga, where, like, the collectivist mindset is more prevalent than a more individualist mindset. So going against the system would be anti-traditional Japanese culture. I don't know how I want to phrase it, but you get what I'm trying to say.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, because One Piece, it's also, like, not only is One Piece highly individualistic in a collectivist culture, but it's also like, half the country was reading it during, like, the peak of this saga, actually, and it's still, like, it's one of the most popular pieces of fiction in the world, period. Just a lot, really, in Japan too. So it's interesting that the one that's the most counter to, like, not that there aren't other individualist pieces in like, Gurren Lagann's kind of another example, because, like, it starts out with him fighting the system, and then they're fighting a bigger system after he makes his own system. So it's like, it's there's other stuff like that, but it's I just always thought it was interesting how One Piece is so against everything, like, so much else that I can think of in its in the regards to the collectivism and the system and stuff like that. So yeah, it's neat. God, we've gotten, like, see, it's funny, this is such a short arc, but we've gone off topic so many times because it is a short arc, but it's so important in the scale of the scheme of this bigger world that we can't just not talk about that bigger world. Oh,
see,
man.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about this. Another thing that's interesting about this arc is that all the other arcs have had, like, their in-between cutaways to other things in the world, but this one is like cutting away to other things, other aspects of the world is, like, part of this arc. Like, it's part of the story. Yeah, so, like,
right, because they're literally, like, right under the nose of the government, so we keep having to see the government reacting to what's happening, because these are big things. Like, this doesn't just happen every day. Like, so it's like the scale of Enia's Lobby, but in a much shorter arc. So and with other big things going on too in the background with Ace. So it's interesting. So anyway, so yeah, Rayleigh saves Kamiye. He gets the collar off, and the other slaves get freed too. Because, well, it's like, hey, I got the keys, we can save her, and Rayleigh's like, no, we're good. So he gives the keys to the other slaves so they can escape. Oh yeah, and so one thing about Conqueror's Haki is that, like, well, because Rayleigh used it on everyone in the auction hall, but, like, Kid and Law's crews are pretty much fine. Like, one of Law's guys is like, he's like, oh, I almost passed out. So it's like, this is, like, a really strong character, but even he can't knock out any one of, like, these notable guys. So it's like, Conqueror's Haki is cool and all, but it's pretty much only used to get rid of mooks. So it's like it's almost never going to be relevant in, like, a serious fight. So, just something I noticed, or I've known for a while, but
I think that is kind of cool, because, like, if you would try to use it and like apply it to a battle, it wouldn't be very a very interesting fight if a character just walks up to somebody and just knocks them out by staring at them.
Right. So how he did it was he made it so it only works on characters who wouldn't have been worth fighting in the first place because they're too weak. Right. So it's like it is a special type of Haki, but Luffy having it doesn't affect the fights any, because if it worked on anyone who would be knocked out by it, then they weren't worth fighting in the first place. So just a good little aspect to how Haki was, sort of designed. So anyway, so I love after the reaction where Kid's just like, I'll go outside and clean up your mess, and Luffy and Law get pissed, and they're like, don't you fucking tell me what to do, you bitch. Like, because they all have this desire to be Pirate King, so they're all like trying to push their way to the front, and you get to see all their fucking powers, and it's good. They're all such... the fucking... Especially Law's power is fucking... Like, I've always, it's just because he can do so much with it. It's like, because he can trade places of things and cut things. It's, man. Kid's power is much more straightforward. It's just magnets. But yeah, it's neat. It's just neat seeing, I just love seeing the Supernovas powers, because some of them are just really cool and creative. And we do get the moment I talked about earlier where, the ones who, don't have the guts to say Pirate King don't deserve to go to the New World, pretty much. Because I definitely think one idea that Arc touches on is, like, because it was brought up with the slave pirate earlier, who, when we first got introduced to the Heavenly Dragons, he was like, I don't want to go to the New World. I'll mention him again later, but, like, what it takes to go to the New World is a big idea of this arc. And, one of the things you need is the will to become Pirate King, and Luffy's got that, so that's good. So yeah, everyone fights their way out. Like, you see everyone from the crew doing cool stuff, like the Straw Hats and some of Law's crew, and Law scouts one of the big slaves that we've been seeing. So Law's definitely a bit opportunistic in that way, because he's like, hey, look, a slave, I'm gonna go back and grab him. So he's definitely a planning guy, I suppose.
Oh, also another thing that we kind of glossed over that I do think is kind of important, especially considering, well, I mean, he's one of the warlords of the sea, so it's kind of important to contextualize his character. But the auction house wasn't it run by Doflamingo?
Oh, yes, you're right. He ran the auction house. Disco was like, he's like, hey, you're gonna abandon the auction house in this time of need. And he's like, slaves are out, smiles are in. Like, fucking Doflamingo's being a bitch. Yes. And that actually is important, especially. Doflamingo's he was one of the first two we've seen next to Kuma after Mihawk, of course. So yeah, good. I did forget about that because I mostly focused on the fact that he mentioned the warlords fighting Whitebeard. And yeah, so Kid and Law run into what we later find out they're the Pacifista units, they're basically modeled after Kuma. But they shoot beams out of their hands instead, because they don't have the devil fruit, obviously. And of course, Kuma even mentioned himself that he was a pacifista back on Thriller Bark, I think, because he was a cyborg. So yeah. So anyway, they get back to Shaki's bar with Hachi and Rayleigh. And everyone finds out that Rayleigh is the first mate of the Pirate King. And I love everyone's different reactions. Like, Robin's just like, huh, you didn't notice? And Brooke's like, he's just so far off the page, he doesn't know what's going... Like, he's just like, Roger, I guess there might have been a rookie by that name. Like, he's been out of the loop for 50 years. He doesn't even know who Gold Roger really is.
Yeah.
He's just eating beans. Yeah. So yeah, Rayleigh then clarifies some stuff about what happened with Roger. So we find out that Roger was afflicted with an incurable sickness. He sailed with Crocus, because I'm pretty sure Crocus mentioned Roger back on in that arc, as Luffy was leaving, and we find out that he went out to see if he could find anything about the Rumbar pirates. And so Roger conquered the Grand Line. He disbanded his crew. And then he turned himself in so that, and like, I think Nami even says, or someone like that, like the way it sort of like went out with him being executed and starting the Grand Age of Pirates makes it seems like he did it on purpose. And I don't know, did you have any thoughts on this whole scene? It's with Rayleigh telling everybody stuff, because it's some cool exposition.
I think the most interesting part for me was I mean, I don't know if I'd call it. I don't know what the word is I want to use to describe it. Maybe interesting isn't the best, but I did like the part where Usopp was like, "Hey, so is it true that the Pirate King's treasure was?" And Luffy's like, "No, I don't want to know," because like that does, I guess, address the elephant in the room that like, oh hey, here is a character who was with Gold Roger, who would know if the treasure exists or not, who would know where it is. But this is the easy way to just say, well, we don't have to know because I don't want to know, and there you go.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have to worry about like, because I can imagine like that could be a snag that could maybe trip an author up. Is like, oh, I introduced this character who would know the answers, and some may just not think of that and just not address it, and then all the readers will be like, oh, but this character
plot holes. Yeah. Well, because like, and yeah, that is because the crew is still out there. Like, as far as we know, no one else of Roger's crew was arrested, and Shanks and Buggy even. But like, the thing with Shanks and Buggy is like, Shanks put his hopes on Luffy. You know, like, okay, minor spoiler, because we get a panel of Shanks, and when he met Rayleigh on Saobody once. And we don't know what it is Luffy said, but Shanks apparently says that there's a kid saying the exact same thing as Captain Roger, the very same words that the captain said. So something Luffy said got Shanks' attention, which is why, you know, part of the reason why, you know, like he told Whitebeard, he gambled his arm on the new era. So, like, Shanks has put all his hopes on Luffy and his hat for some reason, because there's some connection to Roger that we don't, something Luffy said, and I'm like, what did he say? Because I've read more of the series than you, and I still don't know, man. I still don't know.
Gotta study that first chapter, gotta put it under a microscope and chop up all the panels look for the words, look for the deep hidden meaning.
But I wanted to bring that up because, like, Buggy, like, I'm pretty sure Buggy isn't specifically interested in becoming Pirate King. He's just wants money. Like, that's all he's ever seemed to want. Even back on the ship of the Pirate King's crew. So it's like, even if they know what the One Piece is, like, I don't know, you know, it seems like information hasn't leaked, even though, like, all of Roger's crew might have a chance to know. Like, you know, I'm assuming they do just because Rayleigh does, but with there could be something. We could get a flashback and find out it's not quite that, you know, simple. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I also liked, because the moment of Luffy, you know, saying he doesn't want to know what the treasure is interesting. But I also like, because before that, apparently Roger's crew knows about the Void Century that Robin is looking for.
Oh, but, yeah, that was the other big moment where, like, Robin could have got, like, that was another moment, like, with Luffy. Like, she could have gotten the answers she was looking for, and she's just like, nah, I'll figure it out. Or was it that she didn't want to know, or was it that he said you're not going to really fully understand it? So, like, I could tell you, but it might be better that you just find out on your own.
Right, well, because he even says that, like, that we and those at Ohara were too hasty. So it's like, was something missing? Like, what do the Roger Pirates know or not know that separates them from when the Straughts will eventually find out? Who we don't know yet. And, you know, Robin decides to because maybe there's, like, a whole different interpretation and stuff.
Because it could be kind of like
the history.
What's the character's name? Nolan, like the Nolan story, where it's like, oh, this character was a liar and he did this thing, and this is the definitive story. But no, actually, that's not entirely true. So it could be like that.
So basically, like, because that's the thing is, like, you know, so basically, Rayleigh might have been more of they know the smiling Nolan version of the story, but Luffy will come to eventually know that he was crying on that day. You know, like, they didn't get, no one actually found out about the flashback except maybe. You know, some of it would have been passed down through the Shandians, but Luffy certainly didn't find out. But yeah, so yeah, there's, you know, history isn't so simple. You know, when it gets passed down, like, it can be colored a certain way, and in this case, the Void, it wasn't passed down at all. So yeah. But two other things of note, I think, is because Rayleigh says that Gold Roger is able to hear the voices of all things in the world. So because. Okay, so here's what's kind of weird about, like, the whole mentioning of Ohara, because it's, like, the way he says it, it's like, it seems that we and those at Ohara, like, it kind of says it in a way that maybe puts them together, because I've always thought it was really weird, because the timeline matches up really well, because 4 years before Roger died, he went on his journey, and that matches up extraordinarily well with the scholars of Ohara leaving Robin and Ohara. Like, Olvia's, like, if you check on the Wikia, don't do that because Mathwiz, because of spoilers, but, like, they have a timeline where it's, like, this year, this thing happened, and Roger started his journey the same year that Olvia left Ohara. So it's like, was Olvia on Roger's ship? Did she get, because would have gotten captured after Roger's death. So it's like, the timeline could match up if Oda decides to go that way. And I've always been wondering, like, was there a connection there? And so, and the other thing is that, because he was talking about how, like, Roger couldn't read the poneglyphs, but he could hear the voices of all things. And after that, Luffy says that the one who is the most free is the Pirate King. And of course, freedom is like a major theme, so there's Luffy sort of stating his thoughts on it. But I like how it's like, we've known that Luffy wants to be Pirate King for so long, but now we're 500 chapters in, we're finally learning more about why Luffy, or what Luffy sees the Pirate King as. Like, he's always felt like this, but we're only learning about it now. So any other thoughts on that? Or shall we move on? Because we're still in Saobody. Like, it's only like a 20 chapter arc. How the fuck are we still talking about it? It's in 2 hours. And 1 hour, like over an hour and a half. But still. So anyway, Kizaru drops in. So he apparently has the Light Devil fruit, but he's a bit slow in the head.
Now, just to make sure that I'm remembering these characters correctly, Kizaru was the one who, like, massacred Ohara, right?
No, that was Sakazuki, aka Aka Inu. So basically, think of it this way.
Okay, so they're different characters. Okay, that yes. Makes more sense. Because I was like, wait, this is the guy who destroyed Ohara, and he's just this goofball? That seems kind of weird. But now I get it.
He's a different character. Because, so here's an easy way to think of it. Ao is blue. Aokiji, he has ice, because ice is blue, technically. Kizaru is light fruit devil user. Ki is yellow. Aka is red. He might have a fire already exists. Shit. So maybe he has a different power. We don't know what his power is yet if he has one. But Aka's red, and he's the one we haven't seen yet. So just think of it like what, I don't know. I don't know if you know Japanese colors. I do. Like, honestly, I learned a lot of like little Japanese things because I'd like Whitebeard's Japanese name is Shirohige. Blackbeard, because Hige is facial hair, and that's why he doesn't actually have a beard. And white Shiro is white. Kurohige is Blackbeard because it's black. So I learned a lot of like little Japanese words, and so I remember all these colors because of the Admirals. Red, yellow, and blue. So yeah, Kizaru is a fucking dork though. But yeah. So as far as like did you have any thoughts on all the supernovas using the powers? Like Jeweler Bonnet turns some Marines into children or old people, so she can manipulate ages. Capone's power, where he's got like little people inside of him, like Jesus fuck. That one's got to be one of the weirder ones. It's I think it's cool. Did you have any thoughts on all this little scattered Saobody fighting with Kizaru and everyone?
I guess nothing of super note. Like, I mean, I kind of said it earlier that like not all these characters are going to be super important. Like, we just kind of need a way to. I mean, like we should know that the Admiral is a tough foe. But also, like, just to get the visual of that, like, here are all these potential rivals for Luffy, and they're getting destroyed.
See, I fucking love when he just, like, he decides, like, he's just kind of playing it chill at first, and then he decides to wreck everyone, and he does so in, like, pages. Like, he's just, because he's an admiral, of course. Aokiji did the same thing back on Long Ring Longland with Luffy and Zorro and Sanji, so, yeah, like, well, and, we do get a couple, like, beats, because, like, so apparently, Drake, you pronounce it Diaz Drake, I think, because it's spelled with an X, because X is 10, the Roman numeral 10, which is the Spanish number, Diaz, I guess, is how, it's a little, I don't know why it's weird, but, so he was a former Marine, apparently, which I don't think we've actually seen yet in the series. Is there someone who was in the Marines but isn't anymore at this point in the story? I can't think of anyone. Because in the non-canon there was a movie antagonist. Yeah, in the non-canon there was a movie antagonist. Belmare, but she wasn't like a pirate. She was a former Marine, but not a pirate. But yeah, and also Apu, he's also kind of crazy, like Luffy almost, because he like attacks Kizaru and blows him apart, and then he's like, whatever. And he runs away. Apu's fucking, well, he's the roar of the sea, so he's pretty wild. Also, I do really like Hawkins's power, because he has some like straw devil fruit that makes like voodoo dolls, and like he's cool. But yeah, Kizaru just fucking wrecks everyone. And yeah, everyone else is fighting one of the pacifistas, and they managed to beat it.
There was an interesting mystery there for a few chapters, because it's like, oh wait, but
yes,
Kuma's here, but Kuma's there. What?
Right, and then, like, well, they even say, like, he's got paws on his hands that can deflect anything, and then he shoots a beam, and Chopper and Luffy are like, it's a beam! Like, they're so excited, because Oda, like, there's, like, Oda likes, the kids love robots, is what Oda seems to do, so the characters who are like kids are like, beams and robots, and yeah! But yeah, together they managed to take one out. And then immediately after, we get the mysterious axe dude who showed up earlier, or the guy who he was in the shadows earlier commenting on some stuff, and he shows up with another pacifista unit. So yeah, apparently he's a bodyguard of Vegapunk who designed the pacifistas. Sentomaru's a goofball because he's like, he looks serious, but he keeps saying like, I have the tightest mouth in the world. But he keeps like letting shit slip. So dumbass. And so, we actually get definitely a bit of a sequence here, because they're fighting the pacifistas, and then Kizaru comes in. Oh, and then, what did you think about Rayleigh's save? Because that was fucking awesome, I think.
Yeah, because Oda does this so often where, like, the characters will maybe not super often, but, like, he's done it a couple of times where, like, the Straw Hats will, like, get into a tough situation, and then something happens and they get out of it. And, the way the sequence kept playing out, it's like, oh, this is going to be their chance to escape, and then they wouldn't escape, and it's like, oh, but this is going to be their chance to escape, and then they still didn't escape, and so, like, when he shows up, and,
yeah,
it goes up against the Navy Admiral, Kizaru, it's like, oh, man, because it's, like, at a point where, because Zorro still is still damaged from the damage he took from Kuma in the last arc, and so, like,
yes.
I don't know, it was, like, he was at a point where it looked like he was going to die, and nobody could stop Kizaru, and it's like, what is going to happen? They're not going to kill Zorro. And then he showed up.
Exactly, yeah. And then Rayleigh fucking comes in. Also, funny, I don't know if this is coincidence or not, but there is a scientific phenomenon where light scatters from the atmosphere. It's called Rayleigh scattering. So, Rayleigh beats light. It's a weird coincidence, but I always thought that it's just funny. Well, because it's like he's Silver's Rayleigh, silver to gold, but he's also Rayleigh that scatters light, and he's able to beat counter Kizaru, and Kizaru gets serious because as Rayleigh says, he takes his complete attention, like, well, I should save you, but I got my hands full, and Kizaru's like, hey, don't fucking patronize me. And they keep fighting.
Yeah, and I guess this leads to what could more so be, I guess, like the conflict of Luffy's, the repercussions of his earlier actions, because the thing is with Luffy, like, if you're going to challenge a system, you'd better have the power to back it up, otherwise things aren't going to go so well. So maybe more the consequences that Luffy just wasn't strong enough to...
That's true.
Or, like, he didn't fully understand, like, the strength of what he was challenging. So, like, in a sense, like, he is being reckless in that he doesn't... Like, he's taking on more than he can handle. He's biting off more than he can chew.
See, okay, so, but yeah, anyway, I want to comment on that, but I guess to finish up the scene is that the real Kuma comes in, and he uses his power like he did on Perona. He makes Zorro vanish, and then he does the same with everyone else.
One by one, and it's, like, really intense. Because I was like, oh, well, maybe, because again, like, I was still skeptical of what his powers were, so I was like, okay, well, they got Zorro, so maybe everyone else will escape, and then, like, one character, like, Sanji was going to go defend him, and I was like, okay, well, maybe everyone else will escape, and they'll lose Sanji, and then, like, one by one, they just kept going, and I was like, whoa, wait, what is happening? Oda.
Oh, God, and then it's just, like, Luffy's just, like, at the end, he's just, I couldn't save any of them, like, he failed utterly. Oh, man. Oh, and since you mentioned Sanji, I want to mention one other thing I noticed, because when they decided to split up, and he was like, Nami, I'll protect you with my life, but then he goes to save Zorro, because, like, Sanji and Zorro are honestly, like, some of the nicer Straw Hats, like, with the whole Kamiya and Hachi thing, they were like, should we save him? But, like, after the Heavenly Dragon thing, Zorro like helped the guy who was shot. He's like, "Where's the hospital?" And then Sanji, of course, will this is the second time in a few chapters where he's put his life to help Zorro out.
Yeah,
so it's like
I
it's
think
just
the moment like when he found out, because like obviously these are the two that butt heads. They don't like each other. But then like I feel like
at the same time they're the nicest Straw Hats.
Well, yeah, because like the moment at the Thriller Bark, like that, I don't know if that, I feel like that was meant to be like a bit of a turning point in their, like, not to say that they still don't dislike each other, but like there's a respect there that maybe the respect was there before, but I feel like it's more palpable now.
Yeah, well, it's like how I've always saw it is like, the Straw Hats are a family, so these two are a strong case of sibling rivalry, but no matter how much they fight, it doesn't mean that they don't, under all of it, love each other and will protect each other, and of course the rest of their crew. So, that's just how I've always seen it. So anyway, as I talked about earlier, did you have any more to say about, because your reaction was like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, because I was still under the impression that, like, he could somehow, like,
everything will be fine,
people.
they'll escape somehow.
Because like the thing,
and then of course everything just keeps going.
Yeah, because I was like, I guess to say what I had thought, my thought was that like, because I mean I knew, this is where like I knew like our arc titles, so like I knew that Impel Down was going to be a thing, so I was like,
yes.
Well, maybe somebody gets captured. So I was like, does Kuma have like some sort of teleportation power that he can like teleport them to a prison? And I was like, is that where Perona went?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, is that going to be the motivation that gets them there? Is that a member of the crew gets captured? But no, that's not the case.
And then it turned out to be the whole crew.
Yes, that's what really threw me off. I was like, wait, he gets Luffy too? Like, what is... I had no idea what was going on. I was lost for words.
Oh, yeah, no, it's rough. Well, because, like, I would say that, as far as, like... Because I've talked about One Piece as an act structure before. This is, like, the low point of Act 2. Like, so the East Blue was the Act 1. Entering the Grand Line was the inciting incident. So this is the end of Act 2 for Act 2 of the whole story. So we're still going to the end of Act 2 for the whole story, but this is supposed to be the low point for this part of the story. But anyway, what I want to specify, because I was talking about Luffy's bolt, like, there's a few things going on here, honestly, like with Zorro, self-sacrifice he self-sacrificed himself with Kuma, and it worked in the small term, but as we've seen, it's like, with Robin and Nami, is like, it only works in the short term. Nami put herself for her islanders to stop Arlong, but it was inevitably going to fail because Arlong is a shit, and Zorro, he saved them from Kuma, but his wounds came back and were causing problems here. He wasn't in fighting form. Like, the pacifistas would have been easier to fight if he wasn't wounded, So, and then another aspect to it is, like, so there's the whole, like, who's ready for the new world that I mentioned earlier. Like, so the pirate slave, he was desperate, he was talking about how he didn't want to go to the new world, and I think desperation is really important, because you get a lot of that in this sequence. Luffy is desperate to keep his crew, and, Chopper uses his monster point, which is a desperation move. Gears, especially Gear 2, it sacrifices parts of Luffy's life. So all this desperation... in the face of, it's kind of, that's like last time I talked about how Moria and Luffy were fighting on the same level. I didn't necessarily mean that power-wise, but I mostly meant in that they're both using desperation moves, Shadows Asgard and combining Gears 2 and 3. Like, they're both, desperate, basically, and more of that'll come up, but basically, like, if you're basically desperate, and, so I'm connecting Luffy to the pirate slave from earlier, I forgot, Diaz or something, Devil Diaz or something like that. Like, they're both acting out of desperation, so in that, they're not ready for the new world. And because I think what's important here, because I talked about Luffy's boldness earlier, and what does he do here? He runs away. He decides, let's run, and everything goes horribly wrong. So that's why I say that it's like, because, I even had someone ask on Twitter recently, it's like, yeah, but it makes sense to run away from, like, Kizaru and stuff, but it's like, yeah, but it makes sense to run away from Lucci and Aokiji and everyone too. Like, why shouldn't he have run from Lucci? He got beaten. But, like, yeah, but he didn't run, and he kept fighting, and he won. Like, even though he basically lost, like, he was he fell over, and Usopp had to get him back up. Crocodile, he lost twice. Why shouldn't he have given up? But no, he kept fighting, and he won. But, like, here, he runs away. He gives up. He says, I can't win this. And that's pretty un-Luffy when you think about it. Like, it's just... and like immediately after that, things get worse with Kizaru coming in, and sure they do, others do come in, but like because the way I see it is that Oda obviously could have written the story like how he wants, and so I think what he's trying to say here is that like if you choose to run, if you choose to surrender, basically like bad things are going to happen because like you're giving up, and that's there's more to it, but that's sort of what I think Oda's trying to get at, is that like sort of if you try, even no matter how impossible it might seem, you might be surprised, because Luffy tries no matter what, and he usually comes out on top. Even if he loses, like with Aokiji, he still won in the end. But here he gives up and everything goes wrong. So I definitely think that's interesting with how it's being framed, because like it's also kind of similar to Killua in the Chimera Ant arc, where he was the same. He gave up, or he was the opposite almost. Like he gave up and ran away. But like he had, and even like who was it, Ramot or something? Like when he took the needle out of his head, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You love Hunter x Hunter, Mathwiz. You should know this.
I said yeah. Discord didn't pick it up.
Okay, I didn't hear Discord. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's kind of the similar idea where it's like you can't just run away. Like, it's almost coming at it from the opposite angle, where it's like you can't just run away all the time. You have to be willing to try, even if it might seem impossible. Because Bisky even has like a really helpful chart of the one where she's like, there's like A, B, C, and D, and they all have different like ranges of power. Because power isn't like, as we went through over in Enia's lobby, having power and strength isn't just having a number where A beats B all the time. Like, and that describes a lot of Luffy's encounters. But, in running, I don't think he was operating at his best. So, like, the question is, like, could things have gone well if he decided to fight? Honestly, I think that's possible, but it depends on information that we don't have yet. So, I won't say more. So, that's most of my dissection of that whole moment. So, that's kind of how I see it. So, and I'm pretty sure my stance on it is consistent with like the entire series thus far, though we will talk about some later instances later. So yeah, well, it's also you don't did you have you didn't have the volumes, but so because like my volume scan, there's actually like, because you know how there's like there's the SBS pages, and then there's like a blank page with a panel from a previous chapter.
Yeah.
You know those, right? So what it does for the volume is after the chapter, there's actually there's a whole 2-page of just blank pages with panels on them.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
thought
like,
that was pretty cool, because it was like...
Oh, you did have that. Okay,
because it
gotcha.
let that... Because even, like, obviously if you were reading it weekly, then you would have had that big cliffhanger, but like even in the volume, there's there's space in there to process that.
Yes, there's just this blank nothing of like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I was going through and I got to it and I was like, oh damn.
Yeah, we've talked about like, all the things that Oda does to really like he understands the medium of manga. He knows how to make it work.
Yeah, it's cool to see it in the volume too, because that's something you can only really do in the volume. So yeah, it's neat. So anyway, we do go back to Saobody. Duval has protected the Thousand Sunny. The other Shalia, I think is her name, the other heavenly dragon, she's pissed off. And Shaki is talking about how the times are about to come as rough as the seas, so we're on the middle of shit's about to get fucking real. And Luffy is flying through the air. Yeah, so because Sentomaru talked about
a couple of things a couple of things that I find to be really interesting about that scene and like what comes after that. Unless my memory is just wrong, I don't remember there being any like what happened to Rayleigh. Like I don't think Oda showed that yet. Like I think we just kind of cut away from that because we knew that he showed up and was like gonna fight alongside them. Like he was keeping the Admiral at bay. But when the Straw Hats obviously they get taken out, so then like he's just there with Kuma and this Navy Admiral or Marines or whatever. So like that's an interesting cliffhanger. Unless, again, I'm just not remembering things correctly. But the other thing is, like, adding more to the mystery of Kuma. Because, like, he doesn't teleport people. He just swats them away to these places. Like, there were the paw print that Luffy lands in. So, like, obviously Kuma, like, has these locations. Like, something with how his powers work. Like, it appears that he's been there before. And I'm just way confused.
Like, basically... Well, because basically how it seems his power works, because he has his Bible that he carries around, and he was writing down something in it before he sent Perona away back in Thriller Bark. So the way I see it is that, like, he memorizes locations he's been at, and then he's putting the character in a bubble and repelling them to that location, because he even sends Zorro to the place where he sent Perona. Like, we see them, or that was the stretch of chapters, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right. So we do see everyone, and so that's basically what he's doing. Is he's putting them in a bubble, and he's repelling that bubble away. So so that's how his teleportation works, and it takes a couple days of transit, because he's not like in a close distance. It seems like teleportation, but he's really just moving very fast.
Yeah,
which is
that's
also true
what's
of Kizaru.
really cool about it, because it seems like it happens
Yes.
instantaneously, so no one knows what's going on. Like, they just disappear. But it's not
Exactly.
that kind of teleportation. It's just like he just hits them really, really fast and really, really hard, and they just go flying for days. Like, I love it how Luffy is just like, he just falls asleep while flying through the air, and he's like, well, if I land in the ocean, I'm gonna die. But he's just kind of like,
He's
well,
like,
I guess I'm
that'll
here.
happen.
And what's also really interesting about the way they get split, which I guess this is a spoiler. I don't know how many of our readers, like, how many of our listeners, I guess, are not familiar with One Piece, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've given myself plenty of a buffer. I know there's a time skip, and, like, I just want to say,
Okay.
because I don't know, obviously I don't know how things happen, but I'm like, when I saw this, the way that the crew got split, I'm like, if this was how the crew got split for, like, if they don't get back together until the time skip, which don't tell me, I don't want to know if it happens or not, but I'm like, this is a really, like, weirdly organic way to split the crew. Like, not, because I think of, like, how, Naruto did a time skip, or Bleach had some time skips. Like, the characters are off doing their own things, but, like, they all kind of, like, meet up, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go do these, and we're gonna split off and do our training and whatnot. But this is, like, it happens completely by chance, which, like, again, maybe they get back together before the time skip. I don't know. But I'm just thinking, like, if this is how they got split,
we'll see.
For a time skip, and, like, they don't manage to reconvene.
Then how do they decide when to get together? Like, how does that work out? Because it's like, if they decide before they split up, it's one thing, but here they were split up without their consent, basically. So it's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
I get what you mean.
I mean, like, we know that Luffy's goal, up until things happen, was to get back to the archipelago. Like, he wanted to go back to Saobody. So I would imagine that, like, that's what all the other Straw Hats would want to do. It would just be a matter of, like, timing. Like, they would know a place, not a time. I just think it's really interesting. And again, like, maybe they do reconvene before things happen. But, like, I just think this would be, like, a really cool way to split it and do that. It's something I don't think I've seen before.
Go on.
But okay, enough of my ramble. Let's get back.
I can't think of anything else, off the top of my head. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that, like, because not only did Luffy run away before, sorry, I'm going back a bit, but he decided to split up the crew. Like, he said split up, and, he removed the unity, basically. So, like, I mean, they were, unified, like, of course in their goal, but, he split up the crew. So, yeah, I just thought I meant to point that out, but anyway.
First rule of Dungeons and Dragons, don't split the crew, Luffy. You broke.
Don't split the party.
You broke the rule. But no, that is also interesting, like, by dividing the crew, that kind of led to their downfall. That's interesting.
Because, like, I mean, if they fought together, like, because even later on, like, during the fighting, he tried to go help someone else. Like, he left Robin and Chopper to try and fight, because he couldn't stand to have his crew split up. So it's like, he made it worse by splitting up the crew, basically. Like, if they had fought together, like, in theory, could they have escaped? Like, that's the real question, is, like, if they did choose to fight, could they have gotten out? And like I said, I think they could have, but that involves... we'll talk about that later. So anyway, Luffy lands on Amazon Lily, and he gets attacked by mushrooms, and rescued by Amazons, who take him back. They think he's a girl, because they only know girls pretty much, and they save him. But they realize that he's not a girl, because the other mushroom won't come off. Dick jokes, and also ball jokes. Has actually translated it pretty perfectly with because in the West we have the family jewels, but in the East it's actually kintama or golden balls. Like, I remember some of the old translations were literal about that. So, but I think family jewels is a perfect translation, because jewels and gold are still both valuable, and yeah. So
Somehow I didn't even think that like there would be an Eastern version of that. I didn't think of that. Like, what would be the literal thing that they were trying to get across? Because like obviously the character reacts like, oh, it's some kind of like treasure, but Luffy's like, no,
yes,
I can't just take them all.
The pun works in both languages. Yeah, it's good. Or lucky also, because there is a pun in for both languages.
Before we get too deep into Amazon Lily, though, I do like knowing that like Kuma sent Luffy here. Like, I feel like it makes sense because like before I was just like, oh, he ended up in this kind of randomish place. But like knowing that there's a Warlord of the Sea here, and like Kuma's a Warlord of the Sea, so like I feel like that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, but not just the warlord, but the one who hasn't decided whether she or not she wants to fight in the war yet. Yeah. Like she's that's a whole big part of the conflict.
But I could see that being like a realistic or not realistic. I don't want to use that word, but like I could see that being a reasonable connection because like a war like I could see Kuma going to this place to talk to a fellow warlord for some government business or whatever.
Like he did back with Moria on Thriller Bark. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a connection that I'm able to like put together after the fact, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, because obviously because like that's the thing about because you're reading it for the first time, so you go into these arcs without knowing anything, and then or not knowing like you know some things, but then you get to re-experience it through this discussion. So because you'll click things together as we're talking about it, and it's which is kind of interesting now that I think about it. Because like I obviously know everything because I'm reading through it like for the fucking fourth time. For some of this stuff, more for a lot of the earlier stuff, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Amazon Lily starts up by it sets up the idea of like what strength is, whereas that or beauty is, and that strength is beauty. Because it's like, I definitely think because this arc I definitely didn't think is as interesting as Saobody, so it'll probably be shorter. Because we only spent like fucking 2 hours on Saobody. It's like a 20 chapter arc we spent on. Holy shit. I thought there was going to be short episodes. Oh man.
Well, that was like the one time we did The Legend Begins, and that was like 18 chapters or something, but we got like 2 hours out of it.
Something like that. I don't think maybe not quite that much, but yeah, maybe we did. Yeah. So I'm glad I'm keeping the chapter count short, because holy fuck, if we did Impel Down 2, then it would have been a fucking
Remember when I had said
episode.
that, maybe we could just combine the two readings since it'll be delayed.
Yeah, I don't want to edit a 4-hour episode, thank you very much. Oh man. So anyway, Luffy's captured, he gets a new outfit, and after
I liked his reaction. He's like, this isn't manly, and it's just like it's got all the frills and like just his like it uses that like that font where like it's just that weird reaction, just like his face, and it's just like ugh.
Very sad, Luffy. And then he pisses off the Amazons. He escapes. He kidnaps one of the Amazons. Like, everything makes sense in his brain. Like, you understand why Luffy does the things he does, but at the same time, it looks really bad because he's like, he just escaped and kidnapped someone. It's like, Luffy, goddammit. So yeah, so he's goofing off in the... Well, he's also, like, expresses a desire to get stronger as, because, he wants to get stronger than all of them, as he says. And we see, Kuma, Sentomaru, and Kizaru. Oh yeah, and one thing I also think is neat about these chapters, because like he builds his own ship and it doesn't work at all, and he's like, man, I wish Frankie was here. And then earlier he was like, I'm hungry, Sanji, food. So yeah, this goes back to what I was talking about in Thriller Bark, where it's like he was the one fighting Shadows of Asgard Moria, and the other Stotzi had even said at one point that they rely on Luffy too much, and yet there they are, like, relying on Luffy too much, but at the same time Luffy relies on them. And now he's alone. Yeah, this was just an interesting narrative choice, because when's the last time we saw Luffy by himself? Well, wait, that'd be way back in like chapter 1, 2, literally
whatever.
Chapter 1 and like the first because once chapter 7 and 8 hits, he's already got Zorro on his crew. Like obviously he's like physically alone several times because he runs off does his own thing. Like with fighting Lucien or whatever. But like this is the first time he's like, there's no Straw Hats anywhere close. They're all off on their own islands with their own deals. Like fucking Robin's in the East Blue or something like that. Like Chopper's in the South Blue. Like they're not even in the Grand Line anymore. Like everyone's gone. But it's like, but at the same time, he's still like, he's relied on them so much. Like when, like, this is like the first time he's eaten something that, you know, someone hadn't prepared for him, pretty much. Like, because he had to eat the boar, so it's like, this is different. Like, he built a ship. Didn't he build a ship a while ago? Maybe not. I'm trying to remember. Or no, Kobe built the ship in the Alvita stuff. Never mind. That's what I was thinking of.
I know he had the little boat that he almost drowned in the whirlpool.
Yeah, he didn't build that one though. He did own it, but he did. I was just saying, because I was trying to wonder if he'd built a boat before, but okay. Yeah, he I don't think so. So anyway, so yeah, Luffy's messing around in the forest, and we see Vice Admiral Momonga, who was one of the Buster Call Vice Admirals. He was there, and then he's trying to get Boa Hancock to come to the war, and she's an asshole. She's literally like, who put this kitten in my path, as she kicks it. And like later, she's like, who put this puppy and this baby seal in my... It's such a silly gag, because it's just like, she's such a... I think it's funny, because it's like so evil it goes over to the top, and it's just funny, because it's like, she's literally just kicking a kitten as her opening for, this is how this character gets introduced.
And then she has her method of looking down on people where she just leans up super far.
Right. She looks down on them so much she goes back instead. Like, or she looks down on them. Yeah, she ends up looking up.
She looks down on them so far that she's looking up, or whatever they say.
Yeah. Yeah, because and going into the, like, sort of beauty thing, because she has physical beauty. Like, I think, didn't they mention her on Thriller Bark? I think they said, like, the Pirate Empress and the Mermaid Princess are both really beautiful. And apparently that actually gave Oda trouble with designing her, because like Amazon Lily, I think, is cool because he does have a lot of variance in like the female designs and like how their faces and their body types. Like, he goes wilder than he normally does, whereas like, you know, people have criticized like Nami and Vivi do look kind of similar. You know, like, I can understand why people say that. So it's like, so with Hancock, he had trouble making her beautiful, I guess, when designing her, because she's supposed to be extra beautiful, like, notably. So he can't just make her like normal. So yeah, but yeah, her power even like runs on beauty. Like, you have to find her attractive to get turned to stone, to the point where like even girls get hit by it. And but Luffy, of course, the Dragon Ball thing happens where it doesn't work at all. So yeah. Like, it's absolutely a reference, because even the beams, like, the dude, it's almost the same. The beam hits him, and then they're just like, nothing happened. So yeah, that's later though. But yeah, so she has power, she has beauty. She's a bitch though. So yeah, she comes in, and she's kind of like, well, because I think it's important that she's powerful, because like, as we find out later, she was a slave. She was a former slave, just like Kamiya almost became. And like, so the way I see it is like her attitudes and her, she's kind of like, she doesn't want to be controlled. That's why she doesn't want to go to the war. Not necessarily, like, not just because she has no stake in the conflict, but because she doesn't want the world government to tell her what to do. She doesn't want to be controlled again. So that's sort of why I figure her attitude's like that. Or maybe she said that later even. I don't remember. But it makes sense retroactively too.
Yeah, I like how everyone on the ship except the Vice Admiral, like, everyone else gets turned to stone. He's the only one who's able to like stop.
He does the classic power. Like, clear your mind with physical pain thing, because he's stronger. Yeah, he's got to own up. He's a Vice Admiral. He can't just be a little bitch. So yeah, but yeah, then we see the old Gloriosa, I think, the older Empress, the former Empress, who's trying to speak some sense into Boa, but she's Hancock, but she's ain't listening. And yeah, like we talked about earlier, like we find out about the devil fruits, or well, the curse. Well, it's like they mix the curse of the devil fruits and their brand that they'd never want anyone to see on their backs into like the legend to keep everyone away from when they bathe. I love it. And Luffy even like he lands in the water and he's like, "Oh God, I'm gonna drown." Oh wait, no, it's I can stand in this. It's fine. Because baths are pretty dangerous to devil fruit users. Oda talked about that. So anyway, Boa, Hancock, she, Oh yeah, I guess also now I think about it, this is the last warlord we've needed to name, and though we haven't seen Jinbei yet, the Arlong's former boss, like, because he was mentioned ages ago, but we haven't seen him yet, and so this is the quote unquote last warlord we've heard of. So yeah, that's nice. We almost know all the 7 warlords of the sea. It's only been like fucking 400, 500 chapters since we heard about him. Anyway, so yeah, Luffy gets captured by Hancock, and public execution takes place. Oh yeah, see, Bo does her thing, the thing where they look down and abuse their subordinates and piss Luffy off. But yeah, so yeah, and I don't know, did you have anything to say about the fighting? Because like, yeah, Luffy. Because we were talking about earlier how, like, the devil fruits and Haki, like, devil fruits were mysterious in the East Blue and on this island, whereas Haki is kind of mysterious in the Grand Line. And so, like, this, I didn't think about that until you mentioned it, but, like, it's inversed on this island where Haki is normal, but devil fruits aren't. So I hadn't thought about that, which is kind of neat. But yeah, Luffy shows off Conqueror's Haki. He doesn't give a fuck about Hancock, and yeah, they fight. Did you have anything in particular to say?
I'm trying to figure out in what order all these things happen, because my screenshots aren't.
Oh, you fool! You didn't name them by chapter, or you did, but you didn't do it right, or you didn't do it in order. Oh no!
No. This one time I forgot to do that. So like I'm trying to it's also partially that because I don't have it directly in front of me. I'm trying to like figure out like, did this event happen before they fought, or did it happen after?
Because, yeah, there's definitely stuff after. I just want to cover it. Because the fighting, I'm not sure. I don't have that much to say about it. I mostly have stuff to say about the last part with Luffy covering up the brand.
Yeah, I guess.
Because we already kind of talked about Haki and stuff. So, yeah.
Reading this arc, I thought that Boa Hancock was a really interesting character. Because I like how she's sort of introduced as, like, she's, like, this empress. And she's, like, she has, like, all these tradition things. And she's, like, the curses and whatnot. Like, she's painted up to be this, like, majestic figure, and like she's almost kind of like what's the word? Almost like a deity. Like she's like placed on this big pedestal, but like she's got reasons for like again, like she's a bad like I want to say she's a bad person but not a bad character, because like she does a lot of like she is cartoonishly evil, and like she does things that are not great. Like she doesn't want people to know that she was a slave and whatnot, but like some of the actions she takes are perhaps not the best, not the kindest. But it's more like she has a very human flaw, like a very human reason to like not to be this kind of like bad person, because like she has like this big arena thing that like Luffy has to fight her in, so it's kind of like a gladiator type thing that like people just fight for entertainment, and that's not great. And also the way she'll like turn her own people to stone for certain reasons. Yeah. Like
she got the statue. Like, oh, the kids made a statue for you, and she's like, it's disgusting, and she shatters it and get this shit out of here.
That too. And like not all of it is connected to some of it is just because she is vain in a way. Like the mud statue thing. I can't think of how that connects to her being a slave. That's just kind of her being a dick. But
well, she does say it at the because I was skipping ahead, and she does say that she doesn't want to be controlled. So it's like she does her own thing because she doesn't want to be led by or forced to do anything by anyone else. Uh-huh. But so yeah, I mean, like you could say like, oh yeah, the kids gave you something, you should like it. Like it's ugly. Like let's be honest, it looks like shit. So it's like her reaction is like rude, but at the same time she doesn't want to be controlled. She doesn't like, oh, for social reasons I should like this because children made it for me. Like she doesn't.
Yeah, I guess like, that's fair, and it's not like she did it in front of the kids or anything, so it's not like the worst it could be.
See, now that I think about that, it's like she's kind of a parallel to Luffy. It's very similar to Luffy in a way because she doesn't give a fuck. She has no pretenses. But the difference is that, because what I feel like this arc is kind of saying is like, because, they mentioned that strength is beauty, but like, as we've seen from Enies Lobby, strength and power are more multifaceted than just like raw power. So yeah, Boa Hancock, she's presumably the strongest fighter on this island. She's also physically the most beautiful, but she lacks kindness. And what is Luffy's strength? he wins her over and makes her fall in love with him through his kindness. So it's not like she changes to become more kind, because at the end she's still like kicking puppies and baby seals. So but well, that's because what you made me think of is where it's like, because in the way that she doesn't take shit from anyone and she doesn't have any pretenses, she is very much like Luffy. She's just Luffy if he had no kindness, in a way. Like, because she also wants that freedom. She doesn't want to be told what to do. She doesn't want to be tied down by social constructs. But, you know, again,
so the true beauty exists on the inside. Oh, that's
exactly
that's
one of those.
Luffy.
Yeah. Luffy is truly the beautiful one, which is why she falls in love with him. Isn't that sweet? I mean, pretty much. Like, I definitely think this arc is a bit less interesting than Saobody, but that observation's good. I like, you know, that. Thank you for helping me realize that.
But to kind of get back, because I did get a little off track, I think, with what I got a little caught up on the mud statue thing. But like she pushes everyone out, and like she does kind of put herself up on a pedestal, and she like upholds like, oh, nobody can see me in the bath, or no one can see my back because of this curse. But like, it's because she was a slave, and she doesn't want anybody to know that she was a slave. She doesn't want them to, you know, treat her differently. She doesn't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
She
doesn't want to appear vulnerable. Yeah.
She doesn't want to appear vulnerable, and that's a very human trait. It's a very human flaw. So like,
and it's also very contrasting to Luffy, because Luffy, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about, even about that, because like he'll let himself look like an idiot, or because he's an idiot. He's honest too. Like, whereas Boa is trying to lie. So there's also that difference. I didn't think about how well they contrast each other.
Like, you had said that you didn't find this to be as interesting as the other, and I mean, granted, like what is interesting about them is different.
A huge like turning part. Yeah, that's true. Like, and I'm realizing more things about well, it's like, because that's the thing about this reading. It's like Saobody is like this huge emotional climax with all this super important and interesting world building that we talked about for 2 hours, even though it's just 20 chapters. Amazon Lily's still like, that's the thing about One Piece. It's like, yeah, a long story is inevitably going to have peaks and valleys. Like, that's the thing. Is like, the arc right after this saga, like, this saga is considered some of the best in the series, so the arc after it, I think, gets a lot of unfair shit, because, like, it's good, but it's not, like, 500 chapters of build-up good, because, like, that's not what it was trying to be. So it's, and I feel like this arc might be the same in retrospect, like, realizing it now, like, it's even as I read it, I was like, it's fine, it's just, like, but, like, it comes right after Saobody, and it's good, and it's got a lot of interesting things, and you're right, but, so I think I fell into the same trap. I disagree with other people for the stuff after the saga. Like, that arc's good. Yeah, this arc is good, too. You're right. Thank you.
But see, another thing I did like, which is just, I think it's just I don't know if I'd call it a trope, because I don't know if enough characters fall into it. I need to read more, not just shonen, but just read more media in general. But, like, the whole thing of, like, Luffy not being attracted to her, like, at all, like, not in a romantic way, not in a sexual way, I just thought that was, I like when that happens. I just think it's cool, because, like, Goku has that, too. Like he's just such he's so, like, detached from, like, that sort of, like, human aspect, or, no, how do I want to phrase it?
Well, it is, yeah, like, lust and sexuality is a very human thing, and Luffy, character, and also, obviously, Goku...
I didn't necessarily want to say human, but more of, like, it's a societal thing, and so, like, I think for someone like Goku, like, he is so detached from society because he grew up in...
That is true.
A forest or whatever, and Luffy, I don't know about Luffy as much.
Luffy we saw him in a town, yes, and, well, because I was also going to mention Natsu from Fairy Tail, because he also grew up in a kind of wilderness thing, so it's like, yeah, these characters are detached, in this archetype, because it makes sense that they're detached from, because she's even considered like the most beautiful person in, like, one of the most beautiful people in the world, like, she's just that, so, but that's, which is a social, like, people think that, but Luffy does, so she's basically the peak of what the society considers beautiful, but Luffy didn't, Luffy, he's like Goku in that he didn't grow, he acts like that, so I won't say he didn't grow up in because he seems to have from what we've seen, but he acts like he doesn't in that way. Like, you're right. Well, that's also why I think Gon is kind of interesting, because he's like, he went on dates with women, so he doesn't necessarily feel like attracted to them. Because with what's the woman's name? Palm? No,
Palm.
That's Palm and Shooter. Oh, or Knuckle. I was thinking, okay, Knuckle. Yeah, Palm. She is, yeah, where she's like, he goes on a date with her and it's like romantic as fuck. So he doesn't necessarily feel like attracted to her or romantically towards her, but he's able to act like he's able to perform the date well. And it's like, which I've always thought was interesting, because he's closest to he's pretty close to the archetype like Goku and Luffy and Natsu. But, like, he has that very key difference that it's a deconstruction. Hunter x Hunter's a deconstruction after all.
The thing about Hunter x Hunter is that, like, because, like, when you look at something like Dragon Ball or One Piece, I haven't seen Fairy Tail, so I don't know. Well, probably Fairy Tail too, just based on what I hear about it. Like, characters do still, like, there are characters who do experience that attraction, whether it's romantic or sexual or both. Whereas, like, Hunter x Hunter doesn't, like, Hunter x Hunter does have some lust elements to it. Like, there are characters who kind of experience
Leorio.
that's... Yeah, like Leorio or Hisoka, or there's
yeah.
the one girl in York New. So, like, that lust element is there. Romance is a little less in Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah,
so, like,
there's almost like basically just Palm and her yandere gonna stab you if I can't love you.
So even that, it is kind of like a lusty thing.
Yes.
So, like, with Gon, it's a little less pronounced, maybe, as I would... Like, for something like Luffy, like, I can compare him to someone like Sanji, who very clearly has, like, a romantic...
Sanji's...
He has, like, a lust and attraction to other
idea.
people. So it's not that, like, it is just not present in the narrative, it's just... And again, like, Oda's not entirely consistent with it with Luffy, because, like, he did, in the SBS, show that, like, there was the thing with Nami and Alabasta, where, you know, he was with the other people up on the wall.
Yeah, because he had to specify that it's like, with him and Chopper, it's like, it's not that they found her attractive, it's that they were like, monkey see, monkey do.
So it was more like a performative aspect of it.
Well, basically, in other words, if Usopp was there, he would have acted like Usopp, because Usopp was there, but he probably wouldn't have been affected. Like, Usopp would have been turned to stone instantly. Like, yeah.
It's not like I'd want to say that, it's not that, like, Luffy doesn't seem like the kind of person who would just perform it for the sake of, like, wanting to fit in. That's not who Luffy is, but, and maybe it's just, I don't know. Like,
yeah, it is kind of a little weird, I guess.
There are some people who don't really, like, sexuality is not a big part of their, you know, their lives. They don't really, so I just think it's interesting to see characters like that in fiction. This ended up getting off on, like, a really weird side tangent. We've been on this for a little bit, but I also think it's cool, like, less in just the I think it's cool aspect, but more of, like, it actually does tie into the arc, because we talked about, like, you know, beauty on the inside and, like, how it affects the different characters and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it's really cool. I like it when characters just, not to say that, like, you know, having sexual attraction in media is bad. I feel like some of my discussion of Sanji might have veered off in that direction a little bit, and I feel kind of bad for doing that, because that's not true, obviously. But
yeah, I understand what you mean.
I just think it's cool when characters like this are just like that sometimes. And it's also just funny. It's a good comedic gag, because I just like the panel where they all just, like, tilt their heads and there's just all the question marks, like, the beam didn't work, what?
I also like later when he's like he barges into the bed quarters of the most beautiful one in the world, and he's just like, "Where's the food?
Where's the food?" And then he's like, "Where's the food? Why are you naked?" Like, he doesn't get it.
Oh man, it's so good.
But, like, as for, like, a potential theme for the arc, and we did discuss it earlier. Like, there's this big thing in the Coliseum where, you know, Luffy's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And he's, like, trying to preach to the crowd, and she's just like, "Well, it doesn't, you know, they'll do whatever, they'll forgive me because I'm beautiful." And, like, everyone just, you know, again, because of her power and whatnot, and they just swoon over her. And then she's like, "Well, what about you?" And Luffy says, "You make me sick," which I just think there's a theme here. Like, there's a narrative purpose for this arc, and I don't know, it's all there for really a reason.
Cool. Yeah, it's good because well, like, my big takeaways are sort of how they're similar and different. You know, how they're similar in their desires for freedom and not wanting to be controlled, but, you know, the difference in kindness, of course, that really separates them. So yeah, it's a good arc. It's still good. You know, even if I don't like it as much as Saobody, it's still good. Like, that's the thing. Even, like, back in the early One Piece, when I think it was at its weakest, like, it's still good. Like, One Piece has never had a bad arc. I will stand by that.
I also really like the part where he's like, "You make me sick," and she's just like, "Ugh, his existence is intolerable," and she's just, like, so taken aback by someone not finding her attractive. It's hilarious.
Yeah, like, well, it's like she doesn't even have a goofy design, but like it's One Piece, so the way she acts is still, perfectly in line with the series. Like her sisters are way more exaggerated in their designs, but she's relatively normal looking. Like she's tall, that's about it. I mean, she's still got exaggerated proportions and stuff, but yeah. So anyway, so yeah, Luffy is he's invited to talk about the brands and stuff because he said he recognized the mark. And so we find out that this little character design detail of the sun tattoos that guys like Hachi and Arlong were wearing way back fucking hundreds of chapters ago is actually connected to the slaves, to being enslaved, and the whole backstory, like, because she gives the backstory of Fisher Tiger, who was the former captain. Well, she says Fishmen pirates. That's true because it was a Fishmen pirate crew. Earlier on, I'm pretty sure Rayleigh mentioned the Sun Pirates. That's what the crew is called. The Fishmen group is that Fisher Tiger led. That was the crew that Jinbei and Arlong were on too. Is the Sun Pirates basically. So Fisher Tiger formed that crew through freed slaves, and then he also took some other fishmen, including So basically, like she even says that Hachi might have been a slave, but some of them took the brand onto themselves to disguise themselves. Like, so
I thought
we all have this mark.
That just seemed like a really cool detail to add in as like character. Like for some characters, they are kind of like reclaiming that brand by like turning it into something else. Like
they're
to take something negative
it,
and turn it into something positive. And then like other characters also just like wearing that in not solidarity.
Yeah, like,
what's the word? Unity.
Yeah, it's like characters who weren't slaves, but agree with Fisher Tiger that and because Boa says that Luffy reminds her of him, Fisher Tiger, because he apparently fucking climbed the red line to get into, like, we saw how tall that was at the beginning of this stretch of chapters. Like, it went to the clouds. Like, it's possibly like a couple miles up there. He climbed that, and then he fucking wreaked havoc in the land of the gods and freed a bunch of slaves. So, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, Fisher Tiger. Oh, man. So yeah, but yeah, she mentions that she didn't want to be controlled again, which made which is good at recontextualizing why she was the way she was, because especially like I think it's really interesting how like even her like hating kicking cute animals and destroying like gifts from children like makes sense under she doesn't want to be controlled by anything at all. So I thought that was interesting. And then she offers to help Luffy get to wherever he wants to go. And we get a party. You gotta love the parties. Everyone's interacting with a man, so they're freaking out. He's the exception of the rule that no men are allowed on the island.
And I like how they're all like anything that Luffy can do. They're just like, oh, so all men can do this. So like all men
right,
all men are made of rubber.
Stretch and they get fat and really quickly, and they yep, that's what all men are like. Oh man. So yeah, and then
I liked how earlier, like in the forest with the one girl, when like she would say things, and Leigh's like, I don't care to explain the whole thing to you about like devil fruits and whatnot, so we'll just say that that's what it is. You can go on thinking that because Luffy just doesn't care.
I forgot about that. That was really funny. You're right. I forgot about that. So yeah, anyway, Luffy finds out that she's a warlord of the sea, and he's like, what? Well, because I like his reaction because he's like, whoa, if we fought, she'd be really strong. Like, he hasn't fought her yet, but he recognizes the warlords as being strong because he's fought several of them, like Kuma, Crocodile, Moria, so it's like, it's interesting that he has this pretense because it's like, it's built off from information he's known, so it's like, we don't know if she's strong, she hasn't fought, but he's like, oh, she's a warlord, that means she's got to be a big deal, right?
That's another thing that's really cool is like we are able to be introduced to Hancock in all these different ways without like seeing how powerful she may or may not be. So like we don't even know like just the way that it's like, oh, if we fought. Yeah. So it's like how strong. I mean, she's a warlord of the sea, so we'd have high expectations. And now like she's an ally to Luffy, so it's like what?
Exactly. Like it's like we never see her do anything. But and that's also Oda's just really good with that in general, with how he's like constructed his world and the power, how the power curve is. But like, come on, like I got hyped when I first saw Rayleigh. Like, what was he? He's an old man with a text bubble, and I got hyped because of what that text bubble said. The text bubble said, "First made of fucking Gold Roger." Like, holy fucking shit! Like, it's cool. So anyway, Luffy also finds out that the reason, the whole thing with the Warlords is that they're gonna fight Whitebeard because Ace is getting executed, and Luffy's like, oh fuck. See, it's like, and he finds out that like, he can actually, like, he can, now that because before he was like, Ace has got his own adventures, he can handle himself, but now that it's like right in front of him, he's like, I can't, get my crew back together, but I might be able to actually get to and try and save Ace. So he's putting his old family, his family above his crew, sort of his older family versus the family he built. So we'll see how that goes. But
and I really like how the I don't know if I'd call it subplot, but I just like how the stuff with Ace is handled. Because like at first Luffy's like, oh well, I'm not gonna go help Ace because he'd probably be upset if I did that. Like he can handle himself. But now that he sees it, like, oh, he's going to be executed.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go do something. And again, like,
exactly,
putting
like
the blood
right.
family in Ace versus, like the family he made with the Straw Hats. That's another interesting conflict.
Yes, and there's definitely, well, again, that's the whole saga, is because now we know he's going to Impel down to rescue Ace, so, and that's the next arc. So yeah. So Luffy decides to go save Ace, and though there's a bit of an issue with Hancock because she's deathly ill with love sickness.
Oda.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about that because I kind of already talked about it. Or just their whole thing in general. But yeah,
But no, yeah, I like the way like it's even like framed all dramatically. Like it was the title of the chapter. It's like I forget. It was something illness, and it's like, oh no,
yes,
what's gonna happen?
There's also like love is, or yeah, then at the end, love is always a hurricane. Like there's just, it's like I think it's all just so big and goofy. But yeah, Hancock has decided to participate in the war. Well, because it's like, the way I see it is like, she's still not being controlled. Like she chose to help Luffy. Like she was sick, but she still like she didn't know that she'd die if she didn't help Luffy. She still just decided to do that of her own accord. So and then yeah, so she's still not being controlled is what I think is worth pointing out. As she's going to help Luffy because and then she returns. Oh yeah, she saves the crew and they're still like mid cheer of and then they get back in business. I'm gonna find out where the reading ends so I don't go too far. Okay, good. Well, because it kind of blends into the next arc. So yeah, Boa Hancock's on her way to the war. They have 6 of the 7 warlords, but Jinbei is opposed to the war, apparently. The only one we haven't seen, of course. Whitebeard is apparently on the move. He took out all the ships that the government had watching him. Like, oh, the hype is getting real. And we see Garp arrive at Ace's cell in Impel Down. Ace is not looking too hot.
The panel of Ace, just... he's all wrapped in chains and he's just not looking great. I don't know. Like something about this panel is just like really cool, and also like the shadows of Garp and whoever the other guy is that was with him. Like
in the cell.
It's the shadows of the cell, but also like you can see the figures kind of like casting shadows on him. So like
whoever
the lighting of it is really good, and it also I don't know if for some reason it gives me vibes of like the Gold Roger thing, like when he was being executed, like there's that panel of him, and this just kind of gives like big important vibes, like look at this is a big doom. I don't know.
Yeah Well, it's also like because Ace is so beat up and stuff, it's like, or because freedom is such a core idea to One Piece that it's like Oda probably feels that like not having freedom might be worse than death, and so like Ace being there is like rough. So yeah. So anyway, we cut to see where the Straw Hats are, everyone else. Nami's on a sky island called Weatheria. Frankie's somewhere cold with weird animals. Oh yeah. Sanji. What did you think about the place where Sanji is?
He's at a place with what was it described, like young beautiful maidens or whatever. But
Okama's basically like Mr. 2, yeah, but they're all ugly dudes.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I just noticed that they like weren't conventionally attractive, and Sanji was freaking out.
Yeah, we'll come back to this in the future. I'm just gonna offhandedly mention it for now. Because of course we're gonna see more of the Straw Hats, so we can't just not see them. Say Usopp's on some like island with a bunch of plants with a dude named Hercules. A Brook was summoned by a cult. They think he's a demon.
And he does his usual gag of like, "Can I see your panties?" And it's just like, "Show," because
yes, we must offer the demon.
He was summoned by the Illuminati.
Well, yeah, it's good. So then, Robin is now imprisoned on this construction, like this. They've apparently been building this bridge for 700 years to get to the. I forget where it's going. But she's in the East Blue. Chopper's in the South Blue, on this bird island, about to get eaten by the tribal villagers.
Yeah, that was also like that was like a part that like really weirded me out, because like some of these characters are like not even in the Grand Line anymore, so it's like, how do they possibly reunite?
Exactly, it's like how, because it took them how many fucking hundreds of chapters to get to where the halfway point, and now like Robin's in square one, like she's in the East Blue. That's square one where we started the story. It's gonna take another 500 chapters for her to get So yeah, and then we see Perona, and she's like whining about, I wanted to go to a gloomy castle, but I didn't want to not have servants. We're cute stuffed animals. I don't want to go back to. And then Zorro lands in. But it's interesting that like I guess because she's been alone for a while, so she just like fixes him back up. Like he's heavily bandaged. Like, but it looks like a clumsy job because she probably has no idea what she's doing. But yeah, she tried. A for effort, I guess. So yeah, Luffy and Hancock are on the ship, getting ready to go. We see a bunch of Marines gathering at Marineford. Like all the little cameos and references. Like if you look in the panels, you probably might have seen T-Bone or Vice Admiral Comier from the Ace cover story, and Django and Full Body are there behind Hina.
Yes.
There's a giant
Smoker,
Jack.
Tashigi.
He was. You might remember him from Logtown, the giant dude. He was the one who was. He was the one who said like, absolute justice. You know, like when we were seeing the headquarters for the first time when they were going over Luffy's bounty. Yeah, he was the one. So if you look at those panels, like he's not just really high up. He's also like literally a giant. So we actually saw a giant in the story like a few dozens of chapters before Little Garden. When you think, I never actually realized that before. It just was kind of like hidden with the perspective because it looks like he's just really high up, but no, he's actually just really big. I didn't think about that. Oh man. And then of course we see all the warlords talking strategy, but the narration's like, yeah, these guys can't really work together. Oh man. Doflamingo, Blackbeard, Moria, Kuma, Mihawk. Oh yes. And of course Garp's telling Ace that, Whitebeard won't stop. So, the war can't be stopped. And, yeah, that is the first episode done of the Paramount War saga. I've been trying to hide the name in case, because I think even at the end of the last episode, like, yeah, Fishman Island. But that's not happening anytime soon. Which is kind of funny because it's like, the fan base, we were like, oh yeah, we're going to Florian Triangle, then Fishman Island. It's like, oh, Saobody. And then nope. So I tried to preserve some of that, but now that the cat is out of the bag, we know exactly where the shit is going. The war. So yeah, final thoughts on Amazon Lily or Saobody?
Again, good, and a lot of setup. I'm excited for where this is gonna go.
It's a setup arc, but we got fucking 3 hours of almost like more than 2.5 hours out of fucking setup. Like holy shit, it was really good setup. And it's also been built up too. Like again, this stuff has been built up too pretty directly since like chapter Drum, pretty much. Well, and then again, if you talk about the fucking Fishman slave stuff, that goes back to Arlong. So it's like fuck. Oh man. Yeah, it was good. I definitely appreciate both. I appreciate Amazon Lily more from the discussion than I did from rereading it. So thank you for that. Like hopefully I'm helping you appreciate aspects of it because I obviously have been on the series for more. But thank you for helping me appreciate Amazon Lily. That's cool. Yeah. So yeah, we will be back next week for. Luckily, this arc's even shorter. The next one's even shorter. It's only like 25. Maybe it's close to like 28. Impel down. It is chapters 525 to 549. So yeah, about 24 chapters. So it's pretty short. But then again, this is us. We're on the One Piece train now. We're not going to shut up, apparently. Oh man, the war is it's gonna be a longer stretch of chapters. It's gonna be like 4 hours. God damn it! I don't want to edit a 4-hour episode. Anyway, thank you for listening as usual. We will catch you next time, unless you had anything else to say. Nope, we're good. Okay, we're good. We're good.